Good afternoon, good morning, good night, good wherever you are. No, this is not a mistake. We are on the main channel. It's a special Midnight's Edge roundtable about episode 4 of Star Trek Picard. Good afternoon, good morning, good night, good wherever you are. And somebody's got the sound on.
That would be me. Sorry. I failed. I totally destroyed that.
We'll do it live, people. We'll do it live. So I'm, of course, your Nary Screen, Mr. Rob, Robot Shlomo. We have a full house today. No. Hey, I'm a duck with a power ring. Okay, I don't have to prove anything. Anyway, that voice you hear is the one, the only, your favorite YouTube harpy, Miss Mecha Random.
Mister. You know why not? I mean, I do tell people to suck it quite a lot.
Get her pronouns right, Rob.
We haven't changed to gender fluid yet, so.
You guys do that every 3,000 miles.
Yes. And the other voice you hear is the author of the Earthman Jack novels, a resident liaison from the great place known as Sin City, Mr. Matt Kadish.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me on. Happy Valentine's Day.
Yes. We also have the one, the only, the anti-trekker, Mr. Michael J. Crawford.
Hey, guys. Always nice to be a piece of crap in a room like this.
Also joining us is Anna, that Star Wars girl.
Hello, all my Ewoks. You guys ready for this?
No, but it's never stopped me before. And we have a resident physician hailing from the Great White North, the script doctor.
Hello, everybody. Jolan True.
AKA Bill. So if you hear somebody say Bill, that's who we're talking about. And I am, of course, Tom Connors. I'm hiding in the back room, and I'll be bopping in and out here and there.
Yes. Okay. So let's jump right into it. Who's up first? Who's on first? What's on second? Matt. We'll start with Matt. We'll work counterclockwise. Matt.
Yeah. So this is the first time I've had a chance to share my opinions about the Picard show with the Midnight's Edge crowd. So I'll just start that I have a very mixed reaction to this show. There are parts of it that I really enjoy, and then there are other parts of it that make me want to claw my eyeballs out and throw myself off a cliff. So it's a real mixed bag for me. The first 3 episodes I thought were pretty uneven. The standout for it so far has been Patrick Stewart, as reprising his role as Picard. It's just nice to see him and get to see some of the next generation actors come back, like Data, and I guess we're going to be getting Jonathan Frakes and Marina Sirtis coming back. But for the most part, the writing in the show has been very uneven. And for anyone out there who doesn't know, I'm a professional author, so to me, when I'm watching TV shows or movies or something like that, I place a heavy importance on the writing of the show. And I was very hopeful for Picard because Michael Chabon is like one of the greatest living American novelists, like concurrently right now. And so the fact that he was showrunning Picard, gave me like a lot of hope that this was going to be a much better show than Discovery. And so far, I would say it's a better show than Discovery, but not by much, because the writing in the show has been very inconsistent. The respect for canon, Star Trek canon, has been almost non-existent. And every episode, I find something harder and harder to watch. And this last episode, which I believe was called, Full Candor, something like that. I'm going to be full of candor right now and just talk about how much this episode did not hit well for me. I felt like this was the worst episode by far in the series so far, and I'm not liking it, and it looks like the next episode might be even worse, judging off the previews. But I've waxed philosophical on this enough, so I'll hand it over to someone else.
Before we hand it off to someone else, you didn't get a chance to see episode 3. I mean, did you see this as an improvement over episode 3? Was it worse? What did you think?
No, I've seen every episode, and this was definitely, episode 4 was the worst episode so far, in my opinion.
Okay.
I haven't like I said, the first 3 episodes I thought were very uneven, but I didn't consider any of them like terrible. Like some parts of them were bad, but for the most part, they were fairly okay, I guess, like aggressively mediocre, if I can use that term. But this was the first episode 4, that I felt was actually bad. I just didn't like this episode very, very much.
Aggressively mediocre. I like that. Yeah. Anti-Trekker.
Yes, sir.
We haven't heard your take on episode 3. Give us a quick run. What you thought? Your quick thoughts on that before we move on to episode 4.
Well, as far as leading up to episode 4, because it's kind of hard to just talk about episode 3, because I haven't talked about any of Picard on this channel up to this point, but I kind of take a very different opinion of it than Matt. I like him. I'm a little bit mixed on it, but I've enjoyed it more and more as it's gone on. I think that the show overall feels like a natural progression of where the Federation and Starfleet would be based on what we've seen before. If you look at by the way, let me say real quick, it's always an honor to be on with Anna, that Star Wars girl. Mecca, of course, and I are together every Wednesday night. Good to see you, Mecca. Matt, nice to meet you. And Script Doctor is always a pleasure. But the main thing is, like, if you look at the original pilot of Star Trek The Next Generation and the first season, Picard and Riker were in a place where they genuinely believed that Starfleet wasn't even the military, that having the ability to be a commander in combat was not an essential function of being a starship captain, that basically we should all just be, reaching out and giving hugs to new people, and we'll all get along and everybody will join the Federation and we'll all sing Kumbaya. Then the incident at System J25, the first encounter of the Borg, happened. And while Picard and Riker's attitude didn't really change much, Starfleet immediately started developing new weapons, started developing new ships, started thinking, holy crap, we need to take this whole military business seriously. By the time we get to Best of Both Worlds, we find out that Admiral Hansen and Commander Shelby have been working behind the scenes on this project for a year, and they still haven't gotten things up to speed. By the time we fast forward to Deep Space Nine, Starfleet had become somewhat militarized. We've improved the weapon systems and tactical capabilities of ships across the board. By the time we get to First Contact, we now have a whole bunch of new starships. The Steamrunner, the Akira class, and the Defiant class are now all straight up Federation warships. By the time we get to Nemesis, the Enterprise itself is nothing short of an absolute battleship. We have the uniforms now look very much more militarized. Picard actually feels like a captain of a warship now instead of the captain of a floating space hotel. Then we go silent for a while, and so we go 20 odd years later, and it's no surprise to me that Picard would now be disillusioned with the militarization of Starfleet. It's no surprise to me that Starfleet would take the pragmatic decision of abandoning the Romulans as opposed to worrying about whether or not certain planets might drop out of the Federation and the political ramifications of letting your enemy into the Federation. So all that building up, I think that's a natural progression of Starfleet and the Federation. Now, episode 4 specifically, I thought, unlike Matt, I take the exact opposite approach as him. I think it was the absolute best episode of the bunch so far. It felt the most Trek, and I will tell you that overall, I've really liked the series. It has one glaring flare, which has prevented me from giving any episode a score above 7 out of 10, and that is the contemporary progressive writing. Which I know Matt cares about the writing. I do too. And that's one thing that really drives me crazy is that the writing, the story is okay. The plot is okay. The dialogue is atrocious. The dialogue feels like we're watching CSI in space. We're not watching Star Trek. That's the biggest problem. When you start dropping F-bombs and S-bombs and all over the show just because you can, when you start having people say dude, when you have Picard hold up a communicator like it's a cell phone to his ear, stuff like that, it's like it's too contemporary. However, as far as people say, oh, wow, well, the Starfleet is so evil and there's bad admirals and stuff. Go back and rewatch Next Generation. Every freaking admiral is either corrupt, incompetent, or crazy. And that goes all the way back to the original series. This is nothing new. It's just, basically put together in a serialized story. Comparing it to Discovery is like, I'm sorry, Discovery is absolute crap. And I cannot stand that show. That is not Star Trek. This feels like Star Trek. We just haven't gotten the full story yet. So that's my 2 cents, and I will pass the buck on to whoever is taking it.
All right. Well, now that we are kind of up to speed with how you guys have viewed the show, let's start with the ladies first. Anna, what did you like about this episode?
Think hard, Anna. I know it's difficult to pick out the good stuff.
I'm trying.
I liked when it was over.
that is the one. What did I like about this? I like. I liked the weird hippie hologram. I thought that he was funny and he made me laugh. Makes absolute no sense, but it made me laugh when I saw that pop up, and the fact that all of his like holograms are him. I'm waiting for the answer to that, but I thought that one was funny. So that's something.
I do think it's odd that all the holograms are played by the actor who plays Rios.
The captain. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it's kind of odd, especially considering how much he seems to hate them. Why does he keep them activated?
Yeah, see, it's I guess Picard his acting isn't bad, but
it's an actor's dream to play multiple roles, and it's a production's dream to only have to cast one person to play multiple roles. So
yeah, so good for that, but that is the extent of that.
Yeah, I don't feel like Rios isn't a distinctive enough character yet. Like, we're seeing these different holographic versions of him, but we don't really have a good sense of who the actual character is yet. So whenever these new guys pop up, it's hard to contrast them to what we already know about Rios, because he's been so quiet and kind of withdrawn so far, and I don't feel like he's very well defined yet. So I feel like the holograms would have actually probably played better if they were like all Robert Picardo or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really should have been an opportunity to bring him back. Throw around some of the money to DH him. He doesn't even need that much. I mean, he still looks all right.
So, Mecca, what'd you like about the episode then? Since
I liked how unintentionally hilarious the little video game cutscene where the elf spun around and decapitated the guy.
I seen you on their review that made you chuckle.
That was so funny. I legit laughed out loud, hilarious, like just hysterically, because that was so hilarious. It is so out of place. It is so ridiculous. I mean, first off, well, we'll get into what was bad about it later. I mean, but yeah, I liked that it was unintentionally hilarious. I like that we've finally broken to the part where I no longer have to take this seriously and actually give it a fair shot. I'm like, oh, okay, this is just Discovery with Picard and some references to Voyager and crap in there. So I don't even have to take this seriously as Star Trek. I can just riff it like it's the same crap that I would see on Mystery Science Theater. So I like that about it. I like that I get views on my videos for it. It's like legit. Like I like that. Yeah, that's really the only thing about this show that I care about anyway.
All right, well, back around the bend then. Script Doctor, what did you enjoy about this episode?
I felt that Patrick Stewart gave a better performance in this one than in the previous episodes, just a little bit. I mean, not at the first act part where he's in the flashback scene. That was weird. But when he was making his case to the Bene Gesserit lady, that seemed a bit more familiar to Patrick Stewart, at least in the later years of TNG and in the feature films. I mean, there was definitely a little bit more energy. I didn't feel like he was so weak in the voice like he was in the previous two episodes. The first episode, he had some energy behind him. There's that. Yeah, that's that's about it. I appreciate the attempt at humor with Rios and his holograms, but it's just not landing for me. Not in the genre of Star Trek. And even a lot of the ideas are interesting, but again, they just don't feel like they line up with Star Trek. If it weren't the Romulans that were suffering, if it was like another species that had just developed warp drive, and then this happen to them, and we were exploring that, I'd probably be a bit more open to it. But yeah, there's not a whole lot really to appreciate from the series so far, especially with this latest episode.
Well, I guess then I'm up then. This episode, it ranged from interesting to just downright confusing. There were the germ of some good ideas, but then they would make decisions that would just make you just say, why do they do this? Like, why do you need a holographic autopilot when right now we have planes that can fly from New York to Los Angeles and take off and land completely on autopilot? Why would you need a physical representation? Robert Meyer Burnett actually pointed this out too. Why would you need a physical representation of a pilot sitting in that seat? And why would you make him hungover?
To confuse us, the audience, as to why there's so many beard boys on the show.
Yeah. Why would the Romulans, who are an technologically advanced race, why would they be fighting with swords? Why
would they allow their son to go supernova? Yeah. I mean, like this is where I'm at. Like the whole premise that the show starts off on is just bullshit.
Wait, are we on the things we don't like now?
Yeah, me and Michael didn't even get to...
We're getting there. Rob was giving what he liked. Yeah,
I guess.
Rob's got
This doesn't sound like something somebody likes.
Yeah, I know. Rob was supposed to be saying what he likes, so he got timed out for 2 seconds. And then we're gonna go to Michael, and then I'll pop in here. So yeah, Rob, what did you like about this show, this episode?
Well, like I'm ding. I got a ding over here on my phone. Okay, well that'll keep. But I like that it was in color.
What?
Yeah, you can actually see everything when they were on the
black and white Star Trek episodes are so annoying.
Yeah, I like that scenes took place in the daytime.
Oh my
god! I like that. Well, 7 of 9 still looks pretty good for I like that it eventually ended. Like Waldorf and Statler said, just when you think the show is terrible, something wonderful happens. What? It ends. So, I like that. I like that I was able to watch it on a screen. I guess I don't know. There's, like I said, there's just so much that is just so confusing. It just drowns out, and so bad that it drowns out what you like about it. For the one thing that you do like, there's 10 other things. Like why? You just ask yourself why? So let's get into that now, I guess. What do you think, Tom? Good enough place to get into what we didn't like.
Me and Michael wanted to.
Yeah, Michael and Matt still have to give what they. So, what did you two like about the show, real quick?
Michael, you can go ahead. I'll go.
Okay, well, I actually like the holograms. I think that they're kind of funny. To me, it just seems like, hey, if you have a ship that you remember, this is a private vessel. This is not Starfleet. And so if you're going to have a bunch of holograms running your ship for you because you don't have a crew, you make them all look like yourself and then give them all different personalities so that you don't, you have something to interact with. So I think they're funny. I really liked the Romulan bird of prey. And by the way, I do actually really like that they finally settled the canonical issue of whether or not the name of that ship is a bird of prey, by calling it directly a bird of prey. And I know to some people that means nothing, but I've actually been involved in massive debates with people about whether or not that is a warbird or a bird of prey.
Yeah, I always thought it was a warbird.
Yeah, and that's the thing for those of us that are old like me. I know you're a lot younger than me, Anna, and for us old people, we've always called that ship a bird of prey, all the way back to the 60s and 70s. But then along comes the Klingon bird of prey, which was because they changed the villain of Star Trek 3 from Romulan to Klingon, and they didn't change the name of the ship. And all of a sudden, people think birds of prey are just Klingon ships, and that was a warbird, and that's where that whole thing started. But anyway, I like that they settled that issue, and I think the ship looked awesome. I liked the fight because you have a civilian ship with civilian weapons as opposed to a Federation starship. So going up against the Daredex class ship or something would mean insta-kill for Picard and his gang. And I actually liked a lot of the Romulan nun sect. I thought that was something new that we haven't seen before, and something that personally I didn't have a problem with. Now, I know that in the dislikes, a lot of you guys are going to talk about how that felt like Lord of the Rings or something because they had swords. But nobody seems to complain about when the Klingons use batlets, but when the Romulans use swords, that's bad. And quite frankly, if you look at the fact that they had a very low tech, they were abandoned by Starfleet, they had a very low tech environment. Those that had disruptors kept them, but the weapon of, because you would have limited power supplies, you wouldn't be able to just recharge your weapon because you have no major technology.
Didn't they fly their ships with black holes, though? Why would they need the Federation?
But that's the thing. This is not a military installation.
Okay, yeah, but still, why would they need the Federation? I mean, they have a gigantic empire.
We actually did the math on that, Mecca, and I can answer that to you directly. First of all, if the entire Romulan fleet, and this is, by the way, going with the most extreme numbers we've had, which is that there's like 25,000 ships in the Romulan ship fleet. If the entire Romulan fleet worked 24/7 to evacuate planets, it would take 7 years to evacuate one planet. The supernova is endangering at minimum 20 or so planets, depending on how large the Romulan Empire is.
But you usually know something's going to go supernova for like 1,000 years, though. You can usually pretty
Not
much
necessarily, and you're thinking. But first of all, there are different types of nova events. And
they said supernova, so
right. But what is canonical is that they had a few years warning. All right, so
but that doesn't make sense that they would only have. I mean, that's one of those little mystery boxes, like they didn't explain.
It doesn't matter if it makes sense to you. That is the fact of the story. That is,
and I think that's why I have a hard time with it.
Well, you can have a hard time with it, but it's still the fact. And back in 2009, this was established, and they have to work with established canon.
And I think that's the problem, is that they've established this bad canon of science that doesn't make sense and events that don't really match up with what we like. We know that the Romulans were 1,000 years more advanced than us. They have scientists. They can build starships. They understand space.
Mm-hmm.
Why would it be like surprise, our own sun is going supernova? Well, that's just so implausible to me. That is, right. You would have like Vulcans on the phone with them, since phones exist in this universe, saying, hey, your sun looks like it's having some problems there. It looks like it's been having some problems for a few centuries. What are you going to do?
And unfortunately, in this particular case, the supernova, they didn't have enough warning and enough lead time to build a bazillion ships.
Possible, though, with all the scientific.
It's not impossible. I don't know what. Here's the problem.
It's just implausible that they wouldn't have somebody looking at their sun. Somebody with some ship or
trying to come up. You're stuck on that one fact, and so you're going to reject.
No, that's not. Well, that's the first starter.
Can I interrupt real quick?
Go ahead, Matt.
Please.
So, Michael, I have a question for you, and I'm hoping, because you're by far the most knowledgeable about Trek on this panel, and I want to get your insights on this. So, accepting the premise of the supernova and the story going forward, my real question is, so does the Romulan Empire cease to exist? Because it seems to me like, from my understanding at least, the Romulan Empire was more than just one solar system, one planet. And so the idea that that you have a planet like the one that we saw in episode 4 where you have all like 250,000 Romulan refugees there that feel abandoned by Starfleet. Where is the Romulan Empire in all this? Why has the Romulan Empire abandoned these people? I'm hoping you can.
That was my big question. Yeah.
Let me show you something here. I wasn't intending to put my camera on, but I will. All right, so let me see.
Oh, and also there's like a million other points that I like. Yeah, that's just one starter.
I know,
that
but I want to
can't
answer this. So,
and then everything else is, and then why didn't Picard call the Klingons? Why is this? Why? I have more questions than just that one, but that's just like one that isn't going to get solved.
And we're willing to hear you out here.
Absolutely, and I don't mean any disrespect to you. I'm like not trying to.
Again, this should be in the show, and you shouldn't have to explain it to us.
Yeah, we can fight all day, Mecca. We're still.
I know. Well, you know, I like you.
Yeah. Anyway, but first of all, let me answer because there's the size of the Empire question and stuff like that. Do we have a definitive on-screen canon answer to the size of the Empire? No. This is the best we have. All right. This is from the published stellar cartography of the Romulan Empire. Now, based on that, the Romulan Empire is somewhere in the neighborhood of about 20 inhabited planets. And so we would do it, and you're talking about probably assuming 5 billion Romulans per planet, which is a relatively conservative number. That's a lot of Romulans. So we have 250,000 of them on this one planet. First of all, that's a drop in the ocean of the total population of the Romulan Empire, and they were brought into Federation territory where the Federation was going to process them and send them to some place where they could have some kind of happy home forever and ever and sing Kumbaya. Unfortunately, because of the political events that happened, namely the synth attack and everything, the Federation pulled out, basically abandoned them there, and they were stuck on a planet with no technology, and nobody really gave a crap about them.
Can I ask why they would take them to a Federation planet instead of not just one that's still within the Romulan Empire?
Because the Romulan Empire, based on the scale of the Empire, would be completely obliterated by the supernova. Well, and in fact...
In 50 years, right?
Huh?
The entire one.
In a matter of a few decades, yes. And by the way, and this is not from me, I actually, and if you may have seen the video on it that I did or not, but I actually had a PhD cosmologist look at the numbers and figure it out for me. That a supernova, which is how they describe it, as Mecca pointed out, would in fact destroy everything in a Romulan Empire, the scale that we have as far as the information available. Everything within the Romulan Empire, and by the way, a significant chunk of Federation planets as well, not to mention a few Klingon worlds, would be completely uninhabitable within a few decades. And so all those planets would need to be evacuated. To evacuate a single planet using all of the Romulan fleet, 100%, would take at minimum 7 years. That's one planet.
I think you're missing one detail out of that, and I'm sorry to interrupt, sir.
No, that's okay.
The detail I think missing is that I remember on your YouTube channel when I was in the chat, someone gave you like 250,000 ships approximately or what have you, which I think is kind of ridiculous. But
we went with the number. It was 25,000, but we went with 25. It even though it was an over-exaggerated number.
Even if it was 25,000, if you were to have all 25,000 of those ships beam up 10,000 people off of the planet on this at the same time, that would significantly reduce going back and forth. So you do 25,000 times 10,000, and that is...
That's how we were doing it.
Yeah, but it's but that's in one day. So that's like 2.5 billion people in a
You're
single...
assuming you could beam up 10,000 people in one day.
No, not in a day. I mean, like over like a course of a month or so.
Right.
10,000 per ship, 25,000 ships, that's 2.5 billion people.
Right.
However long it takes to do that for a single ship, you just multiply, it overlaps with the rest of the time.
Well, we
so
were
it could be
actually
a month, 2 months, 3 months to get that many people aboard and out.
Right.
And then they have to find a planet.
Based on the numbers that we were given, the canonical numbers on the Dideritics, which is what he was claiming that the Romulans were using, is that they had 25,000 Dideritics class ships. And this came directly from Trek Yards, is that the passenger complement of a Dideritics has a max capacity of about 1,500 people in addition to the full crew and everything that you have on the ship. And So we multiplied out the 25,000 times 1,500. We figured that, you'd take a day or so to beam people aboard, a couple of days travel time, couple of days back, beam more people aboard.
A lot of this feels like the Silicon Valley episode of like, how many dicks can you jerk off? So I mean, like, without getting into the weeds here, I'm more concerned about just the story logic of everything that they've set up. So my real question is, okay, accepting that the star went supernova without any warning, accepting that the Romulan Empire still exists, like when I'm watching an episode like episode 4, what's going through my head is like, where is the Romulan Empire and all this? Why aren't they taking care of, like,
even the infrastructure?
Even if it's considered a drop in the bucket in terms of population, the fact that they've had their homeworld wiped out, you'd think that they would place more emphasis on their population because of having lost so many people.
Right.
So the real question is, where is the Romulan Empire and all this? Why have they abandoned this particular settlement? There just seems to be like a lot of backstory that maybe we haven't been exposed to yet, but stuff that hasn't been properly set up. And that's causing all this disconnect with people who are watching the show, because when we're watching it, these questions take us out of the enjoyment of the narrative.
And that was my whole point, is we shouldn't have to have Annie Trekker sit here and give us an entire explanation on this entire thing. That's too much to get into.
Let me point one quick thing out to answer Matt, and then you can move. I understand I'm taking up too much of the time, and I apologize. But that's the type of storytelling you're getting here, though, is that this is a serialized show where, notice at the beginning of every single episode is a flashback showing you a piece of that puzzle. Now, we don't know why the Romulans haven't, reclaimed that planet. We don't know why there's no D'Derdex warbirds in the area and why a warlord managed to take over. However, there's a good chance that we're going to get pieces of that as we move through this season, just like we didn't know about, Picard's past history on this planet until this episode. And that's a very common storytelling.
Yeah, but I think Script Doctor would agree with me in that when you're writing a serialized show, you can have these reveals that come up and be like, okay, this is why things are the way they are. But when you have a fundamental part of the world building that's missing, and it's causing the audience to have this disconnect with the narrative, this is the type of stuff that should have been set up in the first episode. It didn't need to be too detailed. Like, they could have just given like a few quick sentences in the Fox News interview that they did in that first episode.
You need to have some kind of context.
Yeah, you don't need to have a big expository explanation, but you do need to have some type of setup, because like the setup they gave us for the Mars attack with the synths and the Starfleet abandoning the evacuation of the Romulans, like that stuff was fine. I get that they're establishing that, but all this other stuff, like, what's the landscape of the Romulan Empire now that there's Star went supernova? How does that relate to Starfleet? Like, there's just a lot of questions on the world building scale that are hanging out there, and you don't want to slowly trickle that stuff out to your audience. You want to give them a good foundation right from the get-go, and then start doing those reveals for stuff that's maybe not as important. And Script Doctor, I don't know, maybe you could jump in here on this.
Yeah, go ahead and respond to that, Script Doctor, and then Michael.
You're definitely onto something right there. I mean, a little bit of contextualization regarding the state of the Romulan government, as it were, because those would most likely be the first ones evacuated to help organize between Starfleet and whoever else is helping them relocate their people. If they were to say that one of the big issues Picard was having during the evacuation is the fact that the paranoia of the Romulans prevented their delicate government infrastructure from being what it was, and that they abandoned everybody and that there might be a cabal or something, you would at least get a bit more of a taste of why the Romulans desperately needed outside help, because the infrastructure, the core concept of the infrastructure was gone, and we didn't really get a clear indication of that.
Well, I got a feeling we're never going to get those answers, because that's Kurtzman's MO.
Exactly. That's what I'm worried about.
He sets up something and it makes you ask these questions for how many episodes. Oh, don't worry, it's gonna make sense. Don't worry, it's gonna make sense. You'll see. Just keep watching, and then he attempts to explain everything away with an overly simplistic answer. Oh yeah, the reason why nobody knows about Discovery is because everybody's sworn to secrecy. Yeah, that's it.
Are you still there, Anna? We had some issues. She popped out there for a second. Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay, good. Yeah, you're a floating boob now, so we're just making sure.
Yeah, it's like a student who forgets to hand in their homework and keeps giving excuses day by day until the assignment's like way overdue.
Yeah, but the one thing though about the whole thing, what I keep asking, why is the Romulans using bladed weapons? And even though we've seen Klingons use
the Romulan Amish.
Well, I mean, you had Sulu doing fencing in the original series.
But he did that. Yeah, he did that recreationally. I imagine fencing's going to be around for another couple hundred years, recreationally or as an Olympic sport. Okay, just ask Jesse Milestone, but that's neither here nor there. But the whole thing is that we've seen that the Klingon Empire is a society very rooted in warrior tradition. They have bat'leths. But, however, we've also seen them assemble phasers from pieces they've had hidden on their armor. They don't really rely on that as their main go-to weapon. To just suddenly have this one sect of Romulans just abandon their technology and adopt...
abandon their technology.
Warrior nun women.
Warrior nun women.
Oh, no,
I'm calling them Romulan Amish. They abandon all modern technology for the old ways of Romulus.
You guys are putting in facts that aren't there. They didn't abandon their technology. They were put on a temporary holding area and then abandoned. They were not given technology to use, and so they had to.
Yeah, but we're willing to bet. Sorry, go ahead, Anna.
I mean, this was one of my biggest things is that, okay, yeah, their planet blew up 14 years ago, and you're telling me 14 years they've sat there and done nothing. I mean,
that's what I was going to say. Yeah.
Your planet's going to be, okay, just say if you're being evacuated from something here, okay, yeah, the military is going to help, going to get you out of the situation, but guess what? That doesn't mean there's, let's say, out of 1 billion Romulans, none of them have a ship that they can take them and their family out.
There's 250,000, not 1 billion of them there.
Oh, no, I know. I said I'm just.
But even so, here's
the thing, Anna. Can I finish? Can I?
Okay.
Sorry.
I just want to
this out so that way I can get through the entire thing and then you can explain it to me. So I'm assuming that some of them have ships that have warp capability that can beam other people around so they can take their neighbors, their family members. Oh, hi, drunk. And then well, now I kind of lost my train of thought, but it did really irritate me the whole how they keep speaking Romulan, because I'm like, you have universal translators, especially on the Borg ship. Why does she need to speak Romulan when she has the universal translator? But then, yeah, they spoke Klingon, yes, Klingons use bat'leth and those little knives, which I'm blanking on what they're called.
Mechliths.
Mechliths. Yeah, can't speak. But that was more for ceremonial purposes. Even when Worf is explaining to Alexander, he just doesn't go and, use his bat'leth, to go when they go to an away mission. He uses that only when he's dealing with other Klingons. So I was trying to be more open-minded about the warrior nun women and the elf dude. But it's not done well. Maybe if they had different writers doing this and bringing this in, it just seemed like a ripoff of Dune. And yeah, that was my thing, okay, you guys got evacuated. Yes, I'm aware a lot of people are going to die. Not everyone's going to make it, but the ones that did make it, why didn't they have any technology with them? Why you're telling me that they left the planet and they didn't bring anything with them? Yeah, I know you're leaving in a hurry, but still you have the technology from your ship. And Romulans, we know how ambitious they are. We know how sneaky and shady they are. They will go and steal it from other people if they want it. And so just that they're sitting on a planet for 14 years doing absolutely nothing and just going to waste, I don't believe that for 1 second. I mean, I think all of us, if we got stuck in that situation, none of us are just going to sit there and give up. I'm pretty sure all of us would try to do something and make something with ourselves. And if you're stuck on this planet, well, guess what? There's a ship. You can probably hire someone, get the hell out of there. I'm sure all of these Romulans have some kind of skills where they can acquire money, because now that's a thing again. And they can do something. I don't buy into it. And Anti-Trekker, if you want to go over the numbers and stuff with me on getting them off the, not just using.
No, that's, I understand.
I'm not a numbers person at all.
even just like you said, there's 250,000 people on this planet. Even just ferrying supplies back and forth, and somebody would have been enterprising enough to start a trade route to that planet. It
Right,
just
that was
doesn't
my
make
problem. Is they're sitting there blaming Picard and Starfleet for their situation in life when they had almost 20 years or 15 years or whatever it is to do something.
Yeah,
instead of just sit on their ass and act like it's everybody else's fault.
Right.
And that's the thing, is this seems contrived just as a way to blame Picard, just to corner, just to write Picard into a corner where he has to apologize. That's all he did this episode, was apologize to everyone.
Well, he's the white man. Of course he did.
You know, more so than the fact that the society uses swords and stuff. I'm willing to accept all these, plot elements that the show is introducing, and because I'm not super wonky on this stuff, it doesn't bother me. But the thing that does bother me, and I'm hoping Michael can shed some light on this for me, is that I was always under the impression that money had been phased out of use in society. And in this episode in particular, you have Rios say a cash offer is always a good idea. And I was looking at that, I was like, I'm sorry, does Picard have cash? What value does cash have in a society that has unlimited resources with replication? So, Michael, just for my own personal, sanity, can you shed some light on this form? Like, how does money work in the Star Trek universe exactly?
Well, it's kind of messed up, obviously, but we clearly have had currency all the way back throughout Trek. It's just that I think that when Picard tries to say we don't use money, what they mean is they don't use paper bills, they don't use coins or something like that. They use some kind of digital currency, because even in the earliest episodes, in fact, the very first episode of The Next Generation, Dr. Crusher purchases some fabric and then orders it to be charged to her account. Meanwhile, they're saying there's no such thing as money. So you can't be charged if there's no form of currency whatsoever. And of course, in the original series, there are multiple references to people earning their pay. If you go to the K7 space station, they actually refer to the currency as being credits, because they were selling tribbles for 10 credits a head. That kind of thing.
Mudd's Women also has some currency mentioned in there.
Right.
And then said that he used up all of his credits because he kept beaming back home when he was in his first semester.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, in a world where we have matter replication, where anything can literally be created out of nothing.
Well, then energy
money even have value.
Well, here's the thing: with matter replication, doesn't mean infinite resources, because you still require energy in order to convert into your matter for.
Don't they have a sun on their planet? Like, are we done with this needing basic little energy in Star Trek?
Right. Well, here's the thing with the money thing. My understanding from what I got from like TNG and other things was, by the time we get to TNG, certain cultures still have like currency that they do deal with,
like Latinum for the Ferengi.
Yeah, like I was just gonna say for the Ferengi and so on like that. But for the most part, it seems like from the way they explained it early on in TNG, everybody has like almost like a credit system, because there is no jobs per se. It's almost like everybody just pays their dues to society by doing what they're good at.
But you see,
and your worth is in what you're good at, and then basically through Starfleet, you're taken care of in a monetary kind of way, but it's only like through credits, the way I understood it. But I don't want to get too deep in the trenches on this, because we still got to get Matt's likes and my likes for this episode. We're already 43 minutes in yet.
But I do want to say this, because I think that there's also the unreliable narrator perspective as well with all this, because Picard is speaking from his perspective. And keep in mind that, and this is something I've been saying for years and years and years, not just since Picard came out as a series, is that it's really, really easy. And I said this back in my first Contact review like 2 years ago. It's on YouTube now. But it's really, really easy to say that, we don't need currency. We just do whatever it takes to enrich ourselves and to be better people. It's easy to say that when you're the guy.
You know what else is easy to say? An unreliable narrator. I am so sick of that saying. No, I'm serious. Matt and Script Doctor, back me up here. That is the laziest fucking writing fucking trope in the world to say, oh, it's okay because it's an unreliable narrator. No, I'm not fuck that. It needs to make sense.
I'm not saying it's okay because of that. I'm saying that I'm just simply arguing what it always appeared to be to me, is that it's very easy to sit there and say that we don't need money and that we simply do whatever it is to enrich ourselves and to be better people when you're the guy that owns a mansion on a vineyard in the south of France.
The thing is, Michael, is that Picard isn't the narrator for Star Trek, though.
Right, but we've only heard this from Picard.
I mean, Gene Roddenberry's vision for this was, a moneyless society. Like, he had this utopian vision of the future. Mm-hmm. And so all I'm asking for, and the thing that I think Script Doctor could probably agree with me on this, is that if you're going to introduce this concept that we now have class distinctions within the Federation, that we now have a use of money again, just tell us how it came back about. Like it could be something.
It never left.
Well, but there's this perception by the viewers that they have moved past money because we've been told that this. So all I'm asking for is just a little bit of setup as to why money is still in use. Like, it could just be something as simple as, okay, the Federation doesn't use money, but all these other cultures do. So the Federation has to have some type of monetary system just for bartering and trading with other.
Like even on Star Wars, they at least go through the whole thing of Imperial credits and other credits and stuff like that. But not to get, like I said, not to get too in the trenches on this, because Matt and I still haven't said what we actually liked about this episode.
No,
but no, well, let's just jump right into it. Matt, what did you like about this episode before we get too in the trenches on this other crap?
So what I like is that the show is doing a really good job of expanding the post Next Generation universe. Like, we haven't seen anything with the Next Generation time period since Voyager, right? And coming back 20 years after the final episode of the Next Generation, we're getting to see what happened to characters that we know and love. We're getting to see how the landscape has changed, how Starfleet has changed. So I like that they're expanding this universe, that they're giving us, insights into how things are different, and they're giving us a deeper dive into these changes, like, expanding on the Romulan culture and really kind of having fun with this universe. This is the first time that we've been on a non-Starfleet ship as like the main ship. We're getting new characters, and we're getting to see these characters get more fleshed out, even though I don't think the characters are all that interesting quite yet. It is nice to see that they're at least attempting, like, all these characters have names, unlike the Discovery Bridge crew, which you didn't learn their names until the first episode of season 2. So I feel like the writers are learning from their past mistakes, but I still don't feel like the writing is quite up to par where it should be. But I do like how they're broadening the universe, and they're almost like setting the stage for other series that, they could take these ideas and concepts and run with them. So that's the thing I like most about this episode, was like, we did get to see, the universe get a little bit bigger and expand into some new ideas, like that whole thing about, like it's almost like the militia that is policing the area of space that the Federation pulled out on. Like, I'm like, well, that's interesting. Give me more of that. Some pirate stuff. It's like, oh, that's cool. They're fighting pirates. So I mean, I feel like there's a lot of interesting ideas in the show. I just don't feel like they're executed quite as well as they could be.
Right. Speaking of execution, Script Doctor, remind me again who directed this episode.
This was Jonathan Frakes.
Oh, interesting. You want to know what? All the story bullshit aside, this actually felt like the most Trek episode we've had yet so far, and that's probably why. All the stuff when Picard's on screen was entertaining. Now, I'm not going to get into the logistics of what was going on story-wise again, but I was thoroughly watching the show and not checking out like I had been the first 3 episodes. That was until we cut away to the Borg cube crap again. And every time they cut away to Dodge, I checked out.
Soji.
Or Soji,
Soji,
whatever
Dodge
the
was
fuck
the
her
original.
name is.
Doge. I just call her
Whatever her
Doge.
name is. Doji,
I
there
call
you
her
go.
thing too.
It's just teenagers humping beard boys. That's all
Yeah,
it is.
as soon as we get away from Picard, I got totally disinterested. Now, again,
You
this is not
didn't
speaking.
like the Borg ceremony thing?
No,
You didn't like that? You
No.
didn't want to like. You didn't make your toes curl when he like pulled her over to the side and the smoke's blowing and he kisses her and then calls her a liar. You didn't like that? It wasn't
No.
romantic. It didn't get you in the feels.
no,
No.
no. Her and her
Borgs
her-
don't have socks.
and his thing with his sister creeps me out too.
I
So-
really
Are they
hope like
siblings?
one of us adopted.
That was his
That's just
girlfriend.
weird.
Okay, I didn't hear either one of you. Because I had
Oh,
both
my
ladies talking at once. Sorry about that. Anna, what'd you say?
Oh, I said I really hope that one of them is adopted.
Me too. What'd you say, Mecca?
I didn't know they were siblings because it's so hard to pay attention to. I just thought that was his girlfriend.
No, they're brother and sister. At least that's
Oh,
what they said.
why are they humping each other then?
I don't know. And because what's that show? Game of Thrones.
Incest is wincest.
And yes, Drunk 3PO, Picard did steal your hat in this episode. I didn't really mind all the Rivendell shit. I kind of liked the relationship between him and the kid. Those parts did kind of feel Picardish, like especially when she's like, saying that he doesn't like kids and stuff like that, and the little kid gets all offended. Like that felt like a Picard scene to me. I could be the outcast here, but outside of that, yeah. Let's get into dislikes. Anna, let's start with you, since it seems like,
Well, I was
like
just
you've been
gonna
the
ask,
quietest.
what
So.
is the elf dude? Is he from New Zealand?
I couldn't.
I'm
tell
not
you
the best
offhand.
expert when it comes to accents, but
Yeah, his accent was weird.
I've never seen
he
him.
wasn't
before that I know,
Irish because
so I
all the
don't
rest
know.
of the Romulans are Irish. But how did he get like a New Zealand accent when he's surrounded by the nuns that don't have New Zealand accents, and all the rest of the Romulans we saw on that planet didn't?
It's a good question. I don't have an answer.
Because he's a dirty northerner,
because he's
apparently.
a dirter.
Oh, no, he's not a good northerner. They're the ones that have the Romulan head protrusion things. But
Yeah, the more north you are, the more pointed upward your eyebrows are.
Yeah.
yeah, but dislikes will be here for a while.
Your top three.
My top three, I think I kind of went over it on it doesn't make sense to me, these people that are so ambitious that are, willing to backstab anyone and, even, go cloaked into enemy territory just so you can spy on them to see what they're studying. That way you can get it before them, kind of thing. People like that, you're telling me that they just chilled on a planet for 14 years doing absolutely nothing. Like, even the guy that said he was a senator, I'm like, you have to be ambitious to get to that type of position, and you're just sitting there, and you're in this galaxy where you have all of this technology to your advantage. Just because it's not on the planet you're on doesn't mean you have to stay on the planet. You can go anywhere. Even if, maybe if you don't want to help rebuild the Romulan population, you can go to Vulcan, you can go to Earth, you can go to any of the thousands and thousands of planets within the Federation. Heck, you can even go become friends with the Cardassians and go say, hey, I'm this great war tactician from Romulus. Let me join you, and, we can go fuck other shit up over in your little, what are they? Is it the Empire? Are they a Dominion? No. Whatever they call
an empire or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, whatever they call their empire thing. Go do something. Why would you just stay on this planet doing absolutely nothing with your life for 14 years?
Mhm.
I don't believe that for a second, that a Romulan would do that. I mean, I understand if you're old, you've lived your life, you're like, all right, I'm probably going to die in a few years. I might as well just, camp right here, sit next to this waterfall, and live out the rest of my days here. But
And what about the fact that Picard just totally forgot about the kid?
Yeah,
that
He
was
didn't forget.
that was a big thing.
Well, it's not so much that, okay, he didn't forget, but he obviously took off and never came back to make sure that he found a place for the kid like he promised he was gonna.
well. Also,
Well, that's
he
so he could apologize.
Well,
he
yeah.
gets exiled from, or basically shunned out of Starfleet. So he sits on his little vineyard with his grapes, which I'm pretty sure wasn't satisfying to him, since after 14 years being there, he says, yeah, this was never home to me. I belonged in outer space. Okay, so you have nothing left on Earth aside from your little vineyard, which you really don't care about. Why don't you go to that Romulan colony and help them out there? and use the pool that you had from, all of your friends in Starfleet, like Worf, like Riker, like everyone. I mean, you can even suck it up and go call Lixana and have her come bring all of her, Betazoid people over to come help everyone. It doesn't make any sense. So that's
Budget.
oh my God.
No, that's actually a very
Budget, that's
cogent
why.
argument. It's like, even if he was thrown out of Starfleet, he would still probably charter a ship and try to continue doing what he could do, because that's what
Yeah,
Picard
look at
is.
the Klingons.
Considering his stature, he'd have a lot of pull with other.
He would. It doesn't make
Yeah.
sense.
Other.
Then
Well, here's the thing: they
but-
painted themselves into
then-
a corner with this. You can't call the Klingons, because then if you bring in Worf or Martok or any of the old Klingons coming in looking like these Discovery Klingons, the people who missed and skipped Discovery entirely are gonna be pissed that they changed Worf. So they paint themselves in the corner. They can't bring in Worf. That's one big thing. It's like there was I showed this, I think, on the After Dark podcast or last week or whatever we were talking about this, where they have this meme going around. Oh, well, what about your friends in the high command? Isn't Martok over like a really high-ranking official? Isn't Worf Chancellor right now? Oh no, we don't talk about the Klingons. Like, that's the biggest problem. They changed so much canonically, and people are always like, "Oh, you guys complain about canon." Well, yes, had they not changed canon so much, they had some options that they could have gone to, but no, they didn't do that. They've really written themselves into a corner with this entire series, and they're. I think the show is a mix of a few things. It is a show by committee based on which characters sold the most action figures and were the most recognizable meme-wise, which species were the most recognizable, what they could easily get, a story from, like the Countdown comics and all that garbage. And they threw it in this big, please don't throw us out of CBS. We'll do better. What if we get, who do they like? Who do they like? They like Picard, they like Data, they like 7 of 9. And that's all this really is to me.
Well, not only that, they're missing a great story opportunity where if Picard did reach out to the Klingons, and the Klingons are a hated enemy of the Romulans, you have some great conflict there, some great means for debate and exploration. And they don't even explore it.
They're not smart enough to do that.
Well, I mean, also, okay, so I understand if they bring back Worf, he can't look like Worf, and so they don't want to piss people off because they saw how pissed off people got with Discovery and with the Klingons in there.
Actually, they showed Worf in the first episode. He still looks like Worf.
Where?
In the FNN reporter shows a picture of him.
A very brief picture, yeah.
Okay, so I missed it, even though I watched it like 3 times just to make sure, so I didn't miss anything.
It was during a boring part. It's okay. It's not your fault.
Like that's going to stop Alex Kurtzman?
Well, if they don't want to, have that, so that way they can have their 25% difference for marketing and merchandising and whatever. Why don't they just, and I don't know if you guys ever watched this show, but one of my favorite shows was the Frasier show. And so there's a character in that show that you never see her. Maris. And they talk about Maris all the time. And she's this big character in the show, but you never once see her. And they just reference her all the time. And they can do that with Worf. Be like, oh yeah, Worf said this, and this, and just in passing, and just never show Worf. But you can talk, oh yeah, Worf and his army, they're doing this over here on this planet. And just not show it, but it could still be part of the story. You just have to get a good writer that knows how to work that in.
Yeah, the Klingons can't help because they're fighting the Gorn hegemony in a war that they never expected to face, or something like that. Like, they're occupied somewhere else. That's a good way to kind of write them off for a short period.
See, I'm willing to accept a lot of these issues that some of you guys are having, just from the story perspective. It's like, okay, maybe I don't agree with their creative choice, but I'm willing to go along with it because this is the story they're telling. The stuff I have the most problem with is the internal logical inconsistencies within the story that they're actually telling. And this is the type of thing that just drives me up a wall watching the show. There were 3 things that really bugged me about this episode. I'll go through each of them, and then you guys can come in and give your 2 cents real quick. So the first one that I really had a hard time with, and this was the thing that took me completely out of the episode, was just how contrived Picard's showdown with those Romulans was. Him taking the Romulans only sign down and then going to sit down and then like the whole build up to that sword fight, just so Elrond, or I'm sorry, I don't know his actual name, the Romulan sword fighter guy can come to his rescue and say, oh, I pledge my sword to you even though I rejected you like 2 seconds beforehand. Like the whole thing felt like a plot contrivance to me, just to get to that moment where it didn't feel earned, it didn't feel natural. The second thing was that planetary shield that was around this backwater planet with 250,000 people on it. I'm wondering, like, okay, if this is a world where planetary shields are a thing, why isn't every Federation planet shielded? Why wasn't Mars shielded? Like these are questions that pop up in my head as I'm watching this, because I was like, wow, really? They have enough technology and resources to shield this entire planet, but the planet itself is a shithole and people
Can I answer one more point though, Matt? Well, just because it's a technical thing and you missed it. Mars was shielded by the same type of satellites that this Romulan planet was, but those systems were hacked and all the defenses started shooting at the planet. But
okay. And then the final thing was about the child character. So they even said that, like, the nun told Picard, we could never find a good home for him. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, like, did you pick up the phone and call Picard after he retired and be like, hey, would you mind taking this kid to live on your vineyard because you seem to have a connection with him? And, like, Picard seemed very out of character for me this entire episode. And that's one of the reasons I didn't like this episode very much, was because he was just very inconsistent. Like, at the beginning when he shows up.
Not only that, he harbors this 20-some year thing for Data.
Yeah,
that's the other thing.
He shows up at the beginning and the nuns are all like, oh, he doesn't like kids. But every action that he's taken up to that point shows that he's really fond of this kid. So, like, that didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. And then he shows up back later and the nun is like, Picard, you got old. I'm like, he looks exactly the same as he did when he was there like 17 years ago or whatever. So I just felt like he was very out of character this whole episode. He didn't seem very consistent to me, but like those were like the big things that stuck out at me while watching this episode. And those were the things that really took me out of the story. Was I just felt like the writers didn't handle certain aspects of the story they were trying to tell well. And even though I agree with everyone getting down into the weeds on some of these logical inconsistencies that the show has in terms of canon and stuff like that, like I said, I'm willing to be a little bit more lenient on that, just because they're creative decisions that I don't necessarily agree with. But I can't.
Well, you almost have to be at this point, or you can't even. Get
I just can't stand the bad writing from a meta structural perspective, and maybe Script Doctor can comment on some of this stuff too, because it just drives me up the wall. And it's been that way since the first episode. Like, there are so many just structural and writing issues that, for every good part of writing that the show has, it has equally, if not more, bad parts. And so it just drives me nuts.
Yeah, I may have a theory on that. I have no actual ill will towards Michael Chabon, but one thing that I do know, because like I work, my day job is in publishing, and I work whenever I can in Hollywood on script writing, and the difference between the two is that in novelization you explore all the fine details, but in screenwriting it's the bare essentials. And I feel that's kind of what is happening here. We're getting all these extra superfluous things in Picard, but it's not the bare essentials, and it's not giving whole much creative freedom to the directors or actors to explore the bare essentials in a more detailed way. So that's why the pacing is all off. That's why there's weird inconsistencies with character motivation. That's why there's gaps in time, and they're using flashbacks as a crutch at the start of their episodes. It is a narrative mess, and I see what they're trying to do with it, but it just doesn't have that refinement that a television show of this caliber in the past has had. Because I think these first 4 episodes could have been done in either two single hour-long episodes, or maybe one extended pilot of like 55 or 65 minutes.
Well, those were the things that I didn't like. So if you guys want to comment on those 4 things.
I was about to say there was an interview with Kurtzman and was it Hanel Culpepper and Kristen Beyer on Deadline.com, where they said they got to episode 7 and they realized a lot of this doesn't make sense and had to go back. And they don't call it reshoots. They don't call it reshoots. They call it filling in the holes.
Spackling?
It's not like reshoots is a dirty word.
Yeah, because then that way that would justify what we were reporting. But anyhow,
Yeah, they probably got primed on this by the CBS marketing or PR department. Make sure you don't say reshoots. Make sure you don't say reshoots. They're not reshoots. Yeah.
Well, let's get Mecca's take on what she didn't like in this episode.
Oh, like pretty much everything. I didn't like how predictable a lot of the stuff really was. I didn't like how boring it was. As almost Star Trek as it kind of was with some of the scenes in the little nun village, it almost kind of felt like I could be watching an episode of Star Trek here. It just immediately shit the bed and went off into and now we're doing generic modern day sci-fi crap, and that's kind of the biggest problem I have with it. It is so today language, today slang, today people, today mentality, today writing, and just I zone out of it a lot of the time. Like, I don't have the brain power to sit there and say, and this is bad because this, and this is bad because this. I just kind of zone out and I start getting on Twitter and playing video. And then I do the thing that they want you to do, that you look up when there's a loud noise or a flash of light. And it's like, oh, and I hated how heavy-fisted it was bringing in 7 of 9 too, because all throughout the whole thing, you're like, oh, they're going to get attacked, and it's going to be 7 of 9, and it's 7 of 9, and it's 7 of 9, because you showed her in the credits. You've been exploiting Jerry Ryan since Star Trek Las Vegas, and for the whole 2 episodes she's going to be in, one of them is just hello Jean-Luc, and then the next one's going to be her going through somewhere shooting up a bunch of crap, I guess, in Space Vegas with space pimps and stuff for next week. So like, okay, got it. It's just everything about it pisses me off. I don't like the characters. I don't like the writing. I don't like the premise. I don't like, there's so many, well, why didn't they do this? Why didn't they do this? And if I'm spending more of my time still stuck on, well, why didn't they do this? Why didn't they do this? Why didn't they do this? It's really, really hard for me to sit there and pick apart all the crap that's going on in front of me for that episode anymore.
Mecca, did you notice?
I watched it together and I don't remember what happened.
I barely remember what happened.
Yeah, I don't remember. I was just really bored.
Except for the funniest thing I've seen ever on television.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
Yeah, but before we get to that, did everyone notice though when the young kid Elrond or whatever
Elnor.
Let's call him Elrond.
Yeah, like not Legolas. That's what we call him. When Picard was reading him the Three Musketeers, he's hanging out with them. He's spending time with them.
English. Why is he giving him an Earth book in English? Like,
but the thing is, he says the boy needs, and he lives here, but he doesn't belong here. The boy needs. I was expecting her to say the boy needs a father. Oh no, can't say that now, can we? Not in 2020. Can't have Picard be a good father, be a good male role model. No.
So then you got this overly pussified wussy boy who's basically a Romulan chick.
But it just but Picard is the male role model to this kid needs. Can't say he needs that though. And I'm not even saying. I'm not even saying this from a perspective like, that's JW, blah, blah, blah. No, it makes the most. It makes the most sense in the context of the plot that Picard would be the male role model for this kid to look up to, a positive role model. But you can't even do that. You can't even go there. You can't bring yourself to go down the most logical path with the story,
especially considering he lost his family.
Actually, they did.
They did, but they couldn't say it out. But they did.
They flat out said it. That Picard said that he was going to try to find a home where there were men because where he wasn't being raised entirely by women. He does say that in the show,
and he never does.
And he ignores the perfect place for it, which would be his home. Yeah, where he's got 2 Romulans that work for him. One being female, another being male. Himself, the kid looks up to him. I agree. The show should have started out. He should have been living with him to begin with. I mean, you could have flashed back to some of this other stuff to, his life with the nuns and shit. But
that wouldn't make sense, though. He thought he was coming back when he left.
Yeah, but they said it again.
But what did he do? He didn't. He sat in his fucking vineyard for 15 years.
Yeah, they set it up again so that Picard he has another failure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and
I'd like to hear what Michael thinks were the bad points of this episode.
But just the one cap. I am tired of this whole broken hero trope. I am sick and tired of it. It is the biggest cliche now in Hollywood. Every hero is a failure. Every hero is broken and depressed, and he's a quitter. I'm like, that's not what heroes do. Go ahead, man.
Oh, I'd like to hear Michael's thoughts on what he didn't like on this episode.
Well, you sound like you had a good idea of what I was going to say. So what do you think I'm going to say?
Well, if I knew what you were going to say, I wouldn't have asked you.
Oh, I thought you said you had an idea of what I was going to say.
No. I wanted to hear because we heard what you liked, but
right. I have three,
and you're the devil's advocate here, so I'm very interested in hearing what you didn't like about this.
No, there are three things that stood out to me as things I did not like about the episode. And number one, I said this already, and this is a problem throughout the entire series: the contemporary style of the dialogue writing. I can't stand it. Unfortunately, just kind of got to deal with it. Things like the F-bombs and just, the dudes and just the talking, like I said, like it's CSI Space. It doesn't. That is, to me, the biggest glaring flaw of the series as a whole. Number two is also something that runs through the entire series, which is the Borg Cube subplot. I think that the Borg Cube subplot is the least interesting part of the show, and it should be the most interesting part of the show. You actually have stuff taking place on a partially reclamated Borg cube. That should be a recipe for awesomeness, and instead they're turning it into a WB love story, and I don't, whenever that part comes on, I'm like, okay, let's get back to Picard, which is too bad because it just feels like there should be more substance there instead of just trying to seduce the girl and then having the sister, being weird with her brother and all that. And by the way, I do want to say one thing. There is, because I know a lot of people have said this, there's been no direct reference to any ancestral relationship between the two. The sister just likes to mess with him, and he, from what we see, especially in this episode, doesn't like it. And so I don't think that they're having sex. I just think that that's the way she.
Hey, that didn't stop Laurel.
Huh?
She the whole fact that the male isn't interested didn't stop Laurel.
Well, yeah, but that's so the last thing is the only thing that is really specific to this episode, but it really, really pisses me off because of the fact that I do care about the lore of Trek, and when something that is clearly a direct violation of that lore, even if it's something that might sound silly to a lot of people, it bugs me, and that is the sword fight. And the specific part of the sword fight, there's only one moment in that sword fight that I'm talking about, and that is the moment that Picard parries the one blow that he takes from the Romulan. And because a Romulan is 3 times the physical strength of a human, a normal human, Picard is a 95-year-old man. That Romulan looked like he was in pretty good shape. That Romulan should have taken Picard's arm off with one blow. And so the thing is that scene could have been fixed so easily in editing, because all you have to do is have him throw the sword down before the blow, and then you have not Legolas show up and claim that that if you attack him that he'll kill you, and then that whole thing happens. But the fact that Picard was able to parry a blow from a man who was easily 4 times his physical strength makes no sense whatsoever.
What's with all the rapey women in these shows between Discovery and this?
Well, there's
because that's current.
2 rapey women, but I mean, that's not, I don't know if I would call that all the rapey women, but
matriarchy.
Yeah.
It's a current sort of message that men am bad, and it's just
if there was 2 rapey men, don't you think that'd be all over the goddamn news if that was in
exactly.
That's my point.
That's why it's so modern, and that's one of the things that detract from it, is because now we're in this society where it is perfectly acceptable for women to go around making sexist comments about men, but don't you dare put one of these little princesses in her place. No, that's one of the biggest problems I have with a lot of this, is so much the modern writing and the modern feel of it. It feels like they're just taking everything from current science fiction and pop culture and throwing it in there just because they don't have anything else of their own.
Not even current science, not even current pop culture. Lord of the Rings is
I know,
almost
and they're still trying to remake Twilight too. They keep trying to remake that.
So, Bill, what did you dislike about this episode?
Well, okay, that's gonna take. Well, I dislike the ship. It looks like a couple of other science fiction things. It doesn't feel Star Trek-y. Feels like it's pulling from some other genres. It was my understanding that this planet named Vashti, which I also don't like the name of it because we just had the Zhat Vash, so we got Zhat Vash and Vashti, and there's all this Vash going on, and I'm just like, can you have a more original name, something a bit more that's separated a bit more? But it was my understanding that this planet was the Romulan nun choir's planet or whatever that was. Like that was their home, like where they were kind of distant from the rest of Romulus, and they offered the home for it to be settled. But that may just be my own inference from the show. I didn't like how jovial Picard was when he was with the child at the beginning. It didn't seem quite Picard. I mean, the words kind of made sense, but the performance didn't seem true to him in that context. I didn't like the pacing. It just felt so long. Like I was able to rewatch this show at like 1.25 times faster than it was, and there's these long shots and camera movements that just don't do anything, that just go on even forever when you've increased the speed of the video. So there's that point. Everything that's on the Borg is terrible. The Borg cube. I don't understand what Soji's position really is. Like, is she just a laborer that reclaims them, but she's also a researcher that interviews, and she also does like all this other stuff? Like, I don't understand what her context is in that part. Yeah, everything on the Borg cube is really boring. And it shouldn't be. I mean, we're exploring a culture that we don't really know a whole lot about, regardless of how much you've watched Voyager. And we're also getting more stuff about Romulans, which again is another culture we don't really know a whole lot about from the Next Generation and the original series, because Klingons have been dominant in the last 30 years of Star Trek for their culture, more so than the Romulans. So we know way more about Klingon culture and history than we do about the Romulans, and this was a great opportunity for them to explore that, and they're doing a terrible job with it. And then there's also the banter. Like that Dr. Girardi thing at the very beginning of the show, and she's talking about her dad and how she annoyed him and everything, and it just felt superfluous. Why would Picard? I mean, I understand why production-wise they had Picard recreate his chateau on the ship, but why isn't that also his quarters? Like, he has the chateau and his quarters now, so he's just occupying the stuff, and then every hologram is an emergency hologram instead of just a hospitality hologram and a medic hologram. And I'm not sure if it's actually a pilot or if it's just a tactical officer hologram in there, because he was asking the guy to fire back at the Romulans when they were attacking. I'm going to keep it there because it's just, I could go on a bit more, and I haven't cogently formed all the thoughts yet that have been swirling in my head.
Yeah, and you brought up an interesting idea to me when you were talking about the Borg cube. And I don't know if Michael wants to try to explain this, but so you have these Romulan secret police guys, right? And they go after Daj first, knowing full well that they actually have the android in a facility that they control. So why did they choose to go after Daj while allowing her sister to infiltrate what is probably their most secret project going on right now? And
yeah, and whatever it is they need her for, why don't they just use her now?
Yeah, I don't understand how, because it looks like the Romulans are running that show, but at the same time, it's like they're bringing in Federation people. Like, what's the Federation role?
There's not. Actually, they did say, and I got a little confused by that too, because it does seem like the Romulans are running the place, but it's like more like an international attempt. Like you see on the Borg cube humans. You see Trills, you see Romulans, obviously, and but the Romulans are mainly interested in the victims of this one Romulan ship, which we haven't gotten all the details of why they're so interested and why these particular Romulans went nuts after their de-assimilation process.
But this goes to my complaint about the writing not being good, because they don't bother to set any of this stuff up. They don't bother to establish any of it. So you're left with all these questions where this stuff should be very cut and dry. I'm
not pulling any of this from third-party sources. This is all straight from the show. Everything I said was set up in the show. It's not and here's and forgive me because I'm going to pick on Mecca a little bit, but she can take it. She's my friend, and she knows that I get picky sometimes.
And I admit I can't pay attention to this for shit.
But here's the problem: if you're not paying attention to the show and you miss a detail like that, then you later complain, why didn't they explain it? Well, they did. You just weren't paying attention.
I don't complain that they don't explain it. I say it's too boring to pay attention to. And that's the problem of the show, is it's so boring. And what I do pay attention to is annoying. So.
And that's the problem is boring is a subjective term. You find it boring, I don't.
Well, I would argue that the show actually doesn't properly establish this stuff. Like even if what you say is true, Michael, and if you pay close attention to this stuff, because I had some issues with The Last Jedi where they're like, oh, if you paid attention, this character did this and so on and so forth. It's like, okay, fair enough. If you pay close enough attention to the show, you can infer this stuff. But I feel like the proper way to do it would be to set this stuff up from the start and make it so that you don't have to pay that close of attention to the show to know in general what's going on.
So you think
we already had the creators admit that there was a problem going forward when they got to episode 7 and had to go back. And clearly now that doesn't mean that they didn't try to attempt to fix all these problems. And maybe those are the things you're picking up on, Michael. But again, I fundamentally have to say I've tried to pay attention as much as I can to this show, and it is very tough.
Yeah, and I'm a pretty critical watcher too. Like I pay close attention when I watch stuff, and some of the stuff is going right by me. So I mean,
it's just not engaging. That's the problem. That's the biggest problem. It's not engaging. It is and as Mecca always says, it is designed so that a certain segment of the audience with lower threshold of for an attention span can text on their phone, and then when they hear an explosion or they see a flash or there's an audio cue, oh, it's time to look up.
TM Mecca.
That's what it is designed for.
Yeah, that's Mecca's old saying, and she's right. And that's my biggest problem with this show is it is not engaging at all. And I will give this episode the credit it deserves, that Jonathan Frakes knows Star Trek well enough, knows how to work with Patrick Stewart well enough. And even though you didn't care for it, Script Doctor, I liked most of the stuff with the kid.
By the way, funny thing, and this is something I didn't notice, but one of my subscribers pointed out during my live stream about the show, that, since it's a Jonathan Frakes directed episode, notice that the opening shot of this episode is virtually identical to the opening shot of Star Trek Insurrection.
Yeah, I saw that. Even the lighting scheme is almost identical.
Yeah. I did not notice it at first, but that probably because Star Trek Insurrection is one of my, we'll just say, not favorite films. But then after rewatching, I was like, oh crap, yeah, you're right. But that's just having that Jonathan Frakes touch on it. But here's the thing, and I would genuinely ask, and I know that I already know what some of you are going to say, but are you saying, oh, it's not engaging, I can't pay attention, it's not interesting, because you decided that before you watched the show? And before you yell at me about saying that, I will tell you that I know for a fact that many of the people on this panel have done many a show, many a commentary, many an individual video criticizing this show months before this show came out.
Oh, based on everything that the articles have said and everything that the producers have told us about it. Yeah, I was very critical about that.
But also in the defense of at least 3 of us here, Michael and Andre too, who isn't here, we've all said we want to like this.
Sure.
And we like
Exactly.
Picard.
Well, and I know that
and
you
we
guys
love
are-
Patrick Stewart. So
don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that you're.
It's not like we rooted for it to fail.
I'm rooting for it
And
to
I'm
fail,
trying,
and
and I'm
definitely-
desperately trying to find shit to like.
I will do anything in my power to make sure this show is either canceled or fixed in any way I can do that legally and through my channel as respectfully as I can, and with the term being as I can. Now, did I decide it was going to be bad before watching it? Well, I decided that everything about the premise, about the actors, about the writers led me to believe that this probably wasn't going to do any better than Discovery.
Mhm.
Did I watch it to find out? Yes. So you can't exactly make up your mind about, whether you enjoy the thing or not based on, let's see, how do I word this? You can make up your mind based on the trailers, based on, does this look good or not? Do I want to watch this? Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. But for this thing, like, it's if it was actually legit entertaining me, I would be laughing my ass off or engaged or, something. There's just nothing that happens in this other than a bunch of annoying teenagers and then old man Picard croaking out lines when he can, right? And there's another thing. You guys brought up the chick, what's her name? The blonde one that's probably either she's probably like a robot Maddox or whatever. She is just going in Sheldoning the crap out of this, and I just want to slap her. I don't like Sheldon as a character. I don't like characters who are annoying like that.
Which is sad because I actually like that actress. I can't think of her name offhand.
Why?
Alison Pill.
What do you
Alison
mean
Pill,
by
yes.
Sheldoning?
Like
she's
having
just being
to explain
annoying and
everything
awkward.
being
Yeah.
annoying and awkward. And
Yeah, she's
Because,
doing
like,
the
I
annoying,
thought that-
awkward. I'm so socially awkward and annoying, and I annoy everybody. And maybe I should talk some more and talk in the most annoying way possible, in the awkward way possible, even though I'm clearly bothering you. But maybe I should not do that. Shut up! Just get off my screen. Do I need my writing crop? It's like I wanted to fast forward every moment that she's on screen, and this is the problem. None of these characters are likable. If the characters were likable and interesting, and not just a giant either stick in the mud, pain in the ass. That's the other thing. We don't even get to know these characters before they keep shoehorning new ones in. Encounter at 4 Point, we knew enough about these characters to know, oh, these are people who actually want to work together, and this will be kind of a fun trek throughout
You got an
space.
encounter
A little
at
bit.
Farpoint?
Well, a little bit. You knew a little bit more about him. You know a little bit
I'm
about
sorry.
season 1.
Encounter
Okay,
at
by
Farpoint
a
is
4th
a
episode.
textbook example of crap Star Trek.
It's better than what we got now. You know
No,
what?
I'm
Maybe
sorry.
like
You
Star
would-
Trek.
If
And maybe you just
Encounter-
don't
if
like
this
Star Trek.
episode
Maybe you're
were
taking the
Encounter at Farpoint,
antagonistic
it would be 100
position
times worse.
just to have something to get views. Maybe you're doing that. I don't know.
Well, that's the other thing. None of these characters are likable. Not even Picard is likable. In
No,
this
he's
context.
not. He's a terrible character. Like,
hey,
don't
I
even
like
wanna see
Encounter at
him.
Farpoint. I like the first 2 seasons of Star Trek, and I argue they get a bad rep, especially considering Measure of a Man. is an
Measure of
early
Man was
episode.
the rare exception in the early.
Oh, there's some
Symbiosis
good
was
stuff.
Season,
really
there's
good,
a lot
too.
of
Here's
good
my
stuff in
problem with
season
that:
one.
is everybody's like, "Oh, it gets better, it gets better." Who wants a show to get fucking worse? How many shows do
Exactly.
we have that are so great for the first 2 seasons and then totally go off a fucking cliff the 3rd season? I'm glad that Trek actually
I
got
get
better.
what Michael was saying, though, about confirmation bias type thing. But I can tell you, Michael, from my personal perspective, I was going into this show with very high expectations simply because of Michael Chabon. And I said that before, that he's one of America's greatest living novelists right now. He's a very talented writer. I've watched other shows that he's produced, like Unbelievable on Netflix, which was absolutely fantastic. So I actually had very high expectations for Picard. And as I've been watching it, like I said, I haven't hated the show, but I've been very mixed on each episode up to this one, which I did not like. And I feel like I've been very disappointed by what I've seen simply based off of what I was expecting, because I just expected better writing from someone like Michael Chabon, who he's in charge of the writer's room. He's the one making the creative decisions on the show. And I've just been let down by what I've seen so far. And that's where I was coming from.
And here's the thing. I'm not saying that everybody should love this show, right? I'm not saying it's the greatest show ever. Heck, I want it to be better than it is, because I quite frankly think that there's some things that are genuinely disappointing here.
Yeah, this point here, right here on screen, is one thing I didn't like about this entire show, and that is I'm tired of people yelling at each other for no reason. Why are all the characters screaming at each other? Yes, it feels like there's a lot of created out of nowhere like animosity between all the characters just so they can have these chewy bits to chew on, and that feels like the vanity part of how they got Patrick Stewart involved in this.
You know what bugs me more than anything, though, is Rafi calling Jean-Luc JL. Every time she opens her mouth and calls him that, I just cringe, and I'm like, who thought this was a good idea?
I want him to call her crackhead in response every time.
But here's the problem, and this is something like I recently
Stop calling me JL, you fucking crackhead.
Yeah, I recently I was recently talking to Paul Jenkins, and I've talked to a couple of other writers, and the problem here is that writers as now I'm not saying everybody, like I know that we have two people here that are writers, but not everybody that writes does this. But writers, a lot of times, they want to put their stamp on things. They don't want to go by, like, if you bring them into a franchise, an existing franchise, the last thing that Michael Chabon wants to do is follow the rules of that franchise and do it the way that it's been done before. He wants to do it differently. This is not
a really big assumption on someone. That's making a really big assumption.
No, that's based on what we've seen in the first 4 episodes. That's based on. I'm not basing this on any prior knowledge of Michael Chabon. I'm basing this off of. And by the way, as far as Paul Jenkins, I'm basing it on what he told me when I asked him about it. But the when a writer comes in and you're saying, okay, this is the lore of this story. I don't want to hear the lore. I want to get into the character and make Jean-Luc go in a place where and even Patrick freaking Stewart himself. Everybody wanted to say how great it was that Patrick Stewart. They say, oh, it must be good because he signed on. Patrick Stewart said early on he wouldn't do it unless they changed it. And so for it to be different flavor of Trek.
That's what I was concerned with. That was one of the warnings. I'm like, well, I don't want different Trek. No. I want the same Trek that I actually like. I don't want the Expanse mixed with Firefly, mixed with every other goddamn thing under the sun and F-bomb. I don't want that Star Trek.
But here's
necessarily different Trek. I want good Trek. That's the thing.
But this is where I'm going with this, is that that's the downside of things. However, what I see here, and this is where I think and this is probably one of the reasons that I know my opinion is relatively unpopular among groups like the Fandom Menace, but I see this as being exactly what Picard deserves. Why? Because I've hated Picard for years. Look, Picard had some great moments.
Yeah, there you go. It's a Star Trek show for people who hate Star Trek.
No, I don't hate Star Trek.
You hate the character Picard. I mean, I
don't like Picard is a preachy, self-righteous prick. All right, and
let's make him the main character and have him apologize for everything. And I think that's the problem with the show. Is I like Picard.
He has always been a preachy, self-righteous. And let me finish, please. He's always been a preachy, self-righteous prick. Now, does that mean I hate Star Trek: The Next Generation? No. In fact, after season 3, I think it became a great show. That doesn't change the fact that the guy in charge of the Enterprise was always a preachy, self-righteous prick.
Wait,
and
so
now
Kirk is a selfish, preachy, self-righteous prick. You don't think that Cisco is? You don't think that
No, I don't think Cisco is. But Cisco was not self-righteous.
Are you kidding me?
And by the way, neither was Kirk, neither was Janeway.
I can use the way that you described Picard and find points for every single other captain.
Well,
we can do this because it's your opinion.
Picard is the one.
There's a way to do that.
Captain that can sit there and talk about how horrible it is that these people might develop a religion. All right, that's Picard in a nutshell. And I'm sorry, that's offensive. And
I got to say this:
developing a religion about him because he wasn't. It's not an honest take.
You know what? You make it sound like that's the only time they made an anti-religious sentiment out of Picard. Are
you talking about the instance where they broke the Prime Directive and that people could potentially worship them? Are you talking about that, or are you talking?
There have been multiple times in Picard's history where he wants to talk about basically. Picard was the echo chamber for Roddenberry, and I know you mentioned Roddenberry's vision earlier, Matt. Roddenberry's vision ain't Trek. I mean, if people want to sit there and roll their eyes or whatever and bow down at the altar of Roddenberry. Roddenberry's creative control of Trek amounts to the most boring, flat episodes and movies of Trek in history. You know what Roddenberry really hated? Star Trek II. He really hated Star Trek VI. He really hated the premise of Deep Space Nine. He never got to see it, of course, because he passed away before the show went into production. But he hated the premise of Deep Space Nine. He hated everything that most people think is the best of Trek. He didn't like Best of Both Worlds, by the way, either. Anything that shows the military aspects of the Federation in a positive light, he felt was offensive. And yet everybody wants to say how great Gene Roddenberry was.
Did anyone mention Gene Roddenberry today, or are you just kind of going on everybody else's argument?
Here's the thing. Everything that you just said is just your opinion.
Sure.
I agree with him. I hate the premise for Deep Space Nine. Deep Space Nine is my least favorite of all the Star Trek.
It's a knockoff of Babylon 5, really.
Well, I mean, the Bajorans piss me off to no end. But it's just everything you're saying about this, that's just your own view of it. I mean,
of course, that's what I give is my view.
I know, but if you're going to go and say that, say things about other people and what you are assuming on that's a really big, accusation to make.
Well, here's the thing. Is that okay? So you have a character that, at least in my opinion, has been a preachy, self-righteous prick for 20 years, and then all of a sudden, all that preachiness, all that self-righteousness is coming back to bite him in the ass. And you know what? I don't have a problem with that because I think it's well-deserved. I think the fact that when Picard finally failed, because Picard always succeeded over and over and over, and he finally failed after the supernova event. And what does he do? What does he do? He runs away. He quits. And you know what?
You
That's
basically
because he finally had to come face to face.
Abandoned everyone and went to an island in the middle of nowhere.
I didn't like that as far as the Luke character and Picard's character are very different characters.
Well, the way that you're describing
it's the same idea.
No, it's not. Just because you go through
the Jedi but he says the Jedi are a bunch of self-righteous a-holes. And he says, I'm coming here tonight. It's the same thing. It's the same idea.
You know what? If Last Jedi was maybe if Last Jedi was better written and you gave and all that, it might have been a better movie. But the problem
is they destroyed everything that happened with Luke Skywalker. They destroyed everything that came before it. The Last Jedi will never be a good movie because Rian Johnson fucked it up and he broke everything that came before it. He broke the lore. He broke everything.
And yet Rian Johnson is a good writer.
That's
no, you could argue about it all day long, but you know what? I'm sorry, Looper and
I like Knives Out. It's not well written though. I enjoyed it. It's not well written. He's not a good writer.
And I'm just because yes, Last Jedi was a horrifically bad movie, and I don't think anybody here is going to argue about that. But that doesn't mean Rian Johnson is a no talent hack, as people like to call him. It just means that he made a really bad movie, and he wanted to make a divisive movie, and he was successful. With Picard,
speaking of divisive, I have to get going.
Making something bad doesn't mean you're talented. Making something, Uwe Boll makes bad movies all the time.
Okay,
that doesn't
mean.
For a second.
Okay, guys. Okay, stop for a second. Matt has to get going. So you want to say thanks for his time.
It was nice meeting you, Matt.
Well, we've met before.
I'm sorry. In that case, it's like meeting you again.
It's good seeing you again. I always love talking with you because not only are you entertaining, but you're also quite knowledgeable. Script Doctor, good to talk to you face to face, so to speak. We've had interactions on Twitter, so
it's been great. I look forward to more.
Yes, Anna, always a pleasure. You're always sweet and knowledgeable as well. Mecca, love you to death. Can't wait to see you again. Rob and Tom, you guys are my brothers from another mother. Always good hanging out with you guys. Thank you so much.
Indeed.
Have a happy Valentine's Day, everyone.
You too.
You too.
I'll see you
as well.
See you next week to talk about episode 5. So
sounds good, sir. See you then.
Thank you.
Bye.
Do check out Matt Kadish's channel on YouTube, of course. And then Mecca, I got you back in here. Sorry, but now we're all in here. Yeah. Nobody's in the back room. Yeah. So we're gonna have to hit some of these super chats. I do apologize to our panelists, and I do.
Well, actually, I need to run as well because my back is just killing me. And
no problem, Andy.
I've been fighting to stay in there as long as I could, and I'm sorry if you guys don't, don't think that I'm angry with any of you when I.
Oh no, we love you. It's
Yeah.
Valentine's Day,
Yeah.
so obviously.
No, I
religious
like
stuff other than
getting to
Valentine's
debate
Day.
with like an intellectual for a change instead of just somebody in the comment section who's like, "You suck," because
Yeah, it's funny.
you're
I
fat." I know.
was
I've
sitting
been
there looking
fighting
at
with
the
Ticket
comments,
for
and it's like,
3 days.
well, anti-Trekker sucks. Okay, thanks. That's really
Anti-Trekker doesn't suck.
That's a very
That's a different
in-depth
opinion.
analysis.
I was gonna say some of the meaner people in the beginning we got rid of, but
Yeah.
you know.
But it's all good. You know, the thing is that granted, I know that a lot of people, Jean-Luc is a beloved character. I get that. He's just not a character that I ever fell in love with his character. When the whole thing back in, was it 89, when people were wondering if he was even coming back for season 3 or season 4, and if it was going to be the Riker show because Patrick Stewart didn't have a 4th year in his contract. And I was one of the people rooting for Jean-Luc to die in that episode and Riker to take over. And so that's how I felt back then. And to me, this actually does feel like Picard, and I've said it in my reviews, it feels like, wow, they're actually realistically making Picard go through the realization of some of his high-minded liberal utopian ideals not being what they're all cracked up to be. And maybe he's getting a dose of realism here in that, oh yeah, I guess there is money. Oh yeah, I guess there is, second-class citizens. Oh, I guess when we abandon these people, everything doesn't just work out for them. And I kind of appreciate that part of it. Now, do I think everything about the show is great? No. Do I think the apology tour thing is great? No, I think that's kind of lame. And I actually agree with, I think it was Script Doctor said he didn't like the design of the whatever Rios' ship is.
La Serena or whatever it is.
Yeah, I don't care for that either.
It looks like the frickin' guitar from Van Halen.
No, you know what it looks like to me is a repurposed Dominion fighter.
Now the red-white thing just threw me off.
Yeah,
and
I don't like it.
Brought up the same thing. And I was thinking
Yeah, it doesn't feel iconic, and it's really pissing me off that we have yet to see a Federation starship. Other than in a flashback or a dream.
Or yeah, that too.
Yeah.
But yeah, do check out Anti-Trekker's channel. We do appreciate that he can come in here and give a little bit of an opposing view to some of the things we feel, and of course he's very knowledgeable in Star Trek. So do check out his channel. Don't let the argument throw you off here. He's a good guy. We love him, and we hope him a happy Valentine's Day for him and the missus as well. So
thank you. You guys take care.
Take care, brother.
Great talk, sir.
Yeah.
All right, so we do have to hit some of these super chats here. Now they're going to be a little out of order because I don't have Andre here. Hopefully I've got them all. If anybody has sent stickers, I don't think I've seen any of the entire show, but a reminder to those, they do not come up through StreamYards, though I did have my other thing up here to try and grab them all. Again, they're going to come out of order, but when we do get to the end, if you did not hear one that you sent in, we happen to miss them, I apologize. Just let us know and we'll hit it, but I do think I got them all. DeWall has been just sending us tons and tons of them the entire show here, so thank you so much for that. But the first one right off the bat was from Stephen Klein for $1.99. Was waiting for Gandalf to show up on Picard. He kind of was like Gandalf.
For that one, he gets a cha-ching. So that's the only cha-ching I'll play because this is the main channel. Okay.
Yeah, well, we got way too many here to be sitting here going cha-ching all day. So, but yeah, we do appreciate each and every one of these. Michael Mathern sent us another $2. The Romulans were space Romans, serious and secular. Yeah, they seem like, to me, like they're very proud, and for them to sit on that planet, like Anna was saying, that's what bothered me too. It's like you're just going to sit there for years.
It doesn't.
Like space migrants, or not migrants, but
Vagabonds.
Vagabonds, just nothing to do, nowhere to go, nothing to believe in, nothing to fight for, you don't even want to build a family. You just want to sit around at this bar all day and live in this, secular life where,
they behave like Picard.
It's awesome. Just everyone that survived. Why didn't they all pick a planet? Okay, here's a solar system. We can redo New Romulus, kind of how the Vulcans did, even in the what,
Nobody
2009 Trek or the one after.
Nobody even has a transmitter, a subspace transmitter that they can call for a ship to pick them up. I mean,
They can't go hitchhiking. None of these people can
I
like
know, like
travel.
nobody can just go have a powwow. All of the Romulans, all right, our planet got destroyed. Let's all agree to meet on this planet. Let's reestablish our society. Everyone start having babies. Let's rebuild. Like, at least I would understand that if they were trying to rebuild themselves in their 14 years. Like, everyone, we're not gonna do anything. We're gonna build up everything on this planet. We're gonna rebuild our ships, reestablish our government, try to find like a new empire, and have kids everywhere.
Right. Just reestablish themselves makes sense. I don't know if anybody has anything else to add to that, but Doomed sends us $2. Best part, Picard starting to giving orders on the bridge. Yeah, that was kind of funny. That did give me a chuckle a little bit.
Well, that was one of the problems with it. I'm like, see, this is why you don't go and grab some new random captain. And that's another problem with the show. I don't like any of these characters yet. We only see them in the most annoying ways possible. We see them not liking each other, not getting along, not eager to do anything. Who's she? I don't know. Well, who's she? Just all this crap. And like, okay, seriously, you couldn't have picked some people who were a little more likable to
what's
that
sad
I'm
is
spending an hour a week with?
I actually like his relationship with Raffi. I just don't like the JL business and a few of the minor things. Otherwise, I don't mind their kind of, because they do have kind of a shorthand between the two of them. That is a writing thing. That I do give them credit for. But the JL thing just throws me off.
I mean, I like the actress that plays Raffi. I think that if she was like, I said this in my review of episode 3. I'm like, if everything she did wasn't so annoying and, the way that they write her character, she's a really bad character. But because the actress is so charismatic, it's like, oh, I want to like you. But then you look at the context, it's like, oh, but that doesn't make any sense. This is a pretty shit character.
Right.
Yeah, she dwells on her own failures, but doesn't admit those failures. It's really frustrating to watch.
Yeah, that's bad writing. But I like their banter. I like that they have this like
they have like a chemistry, but it's just when you look at it, it's like, oh, this is
like I like that in that episode. He's like, how far did you get her? What are you doing? Blah blah blah. I'm not doing anything. You're looking into it, aren't you? She's like, no, I'm not, and she is, of course. And he's like, I'm gonna send you the information. She's like, I don't want it. And he's like, here it comes. I love their little obviously they don't, they have that kind of. It's kind of like a thing between like Scotty and Kirk, but not quite.
It's like you and me, twisted. Tom.
There you go. Very good. We have our own shorthand to a point sometimes.
We're like brother and sister. We're like, fuck you.
Yeah, sometimes just we know when not to mess with each other, and other times we don't. So, but yeah, that's definitely a good example. Geeking with James Hancock sent us $10. Thank you so much. Will this new show ever manage to generate a single episode worth revisiting? I'm losing hope. Yeah, I've wanted to go back and rewatch the episodes to get to the new one to kind of reestablish my footing, and I just can't. Not so much that I can't find the time. I mean, I can't do that either, but I don't have the gumption to do it. I don't want to watch this shit again. It's depressing. I don't know how you guys feel about that. You can go around the horn here. Start with you, Bill.
I watch it a couple of times because I'm doing reviews of it, but that it just feels like work. It doesn't feel like getting lost in the story. Even when I get an idea to reference something previous to Star Trek and I go to find the clip, I end up watching the whole episode or movie before I go back to watching Picard. And that just goes to show about what perspective the writers are coming at for Picard versus the perspective the writers and the crew were coming at with the previous series and films. And the other part too is like, it's not. I'm very surprised that no one from Secret Hideout or anything has actually gone out to say and combated the criticism for Picard, even though it's relatively more successful than Discovery, but it's still getting.
Shaban kind of did.
Oh, I haven't heard that part yet.
He had like, I don't know if it was like an AMA thing or something like that somewhere.
He was trying to justify the answers, but he wasn't giving the audience. Yeah.
No, that's what I'm saying. He kind of did, but yeah, it was like a real stupid thing. Yeah,
and that's the other part, especially with bad writing and also with poor writers, is that they blame the audience, and it's never the audience's fault. Just like whenever I'm submitting stuff to a reader and they don't like it, it's not really their fault. It's like I have failed at my job to compel them to keep turning the page or to compel them for their interest to get closer to the screen and be maintained. That's always going to be on the writer. That's always going to be on me in that situation. So it's my job to take that reaction, that criticism, and think, okay, well, how can I apply that to my future work so I actually achieve the goal I want, which is to have an audience that's very interested in what I'm doing, compelled to watch more, and do that. Here, it's like they don't even care. It's just, okay, we're gonna have fun with this a little bit here, where they're in the chateau and it's a four-way argument between these characters. Okay, does it move the story forward? No, it's pure exposition. Oh, well, then that's just going to glaze over to a lot of people. So you have to find a way to weave that exposition through character so that we don't register it as exposition. But once the scene's over, we're like, oh, I understand what's going on now.
Right.
And we're not just getting that level of effort here. What we're getting is kind of a slapdash thing. And what's also sad about it is that the writers have tried to make it better, but this is the best that they can do, which is really bad because they don't just turn in a single draft. They turn in a draft, the showrunner reviews it, makes their notes, goes back to the writers, they rewrite it, goes back to the showrunner or their assistant, gets approval, and then they go. And it's a cycle that happens over and over again. And if this is the best that they can deliver in that cycle, that does not bode well for the future of this series.
Right. And a good cross example would be me. Like, I want to get back to watch all of Mandalorian again. Now, I know it has its flaws, and I know there's some people who aren't fans of it, but at least it's got me to the point where I'd like to revisit it. You don't get that very often. Now, Cobra Kai, if you asked me, you wouldn't have to ask me twice to sit down and watch that again. This show, it's pulling teeth. And I know you've watched these shows multiple times already. So do you feel like there's one that's really... No. Well, I meant Picard, but yeah, Mandalorian too. But
I hate Mandalorian.
Yeah, you didn't like that either. But my point with Picard is there any of these shows that you feel, that was the question anyways, is there a single episode worth revisiting so far?
Of Picard?
Yeah. Because like I said, you actually watched them a few times because you said you
yeah, I had to. I felt like I just kept missing stuff because I'm like, you watch it through and it's like, okay, well, I have this question about this. And especially when you do unscripted videos like I do, if you don't get things right, people lose their minds. Like, well, you got this wrong and you referred to this as this instead of this. And I'm like, oh my God. So I had to get very technical with some of the things and make sure I get everything in order as compared to my mind's usually jumbled. So I was rewatching the one where Raffi was on the computer, basically the computer friend, to make sure that I got everything clear as far as the events that happened 14 years ago with everything on Mars and then what happened with Picard and the Romulans. So I needed to make sure I got that right. I got to tell you, I had to watch those beginning scenes over and over again because it's just not written clear enough. And I'm like, everything that's been happening, the entire premise of the show, originally, if this was a Star Trek, Next Gen, this would have all been the plot of one single episode. They would have explained it thoroughly, and you would have been able to see how the problem, the conflict, and how they resolved it in one episode. And that's what I feel like this is. They're taking one episode and dragging it out. And yeah, you can even argue it could be a two-parter episode, but even, where they have to go find Bruce Maddox. So the first part of the episode is everything that happened, establishing that, and then finding Bruce Maddox, coming to the resolution, and that'll be the end of the second part of the episode. But they're just not clear enough, and I think it's because the people that are writing it, they don't even know what they're supposed to be doing. So
I don't think you're wrong.
Yeah, for us to watch it, sitting back here, we're not going to get the answers that we wanted, the clarity that we used to get in Star Trek, because the people themselves that are making it don't even know. So how are we supposed to know when they don't even know?
Yeah, and that's what I felt too. I felt like the last episode ended where like the first episode should have ended, and this was the first episode we had that felt like an actual contained episode. I know it's a serialized show, but it felt like it had a beginning, a middle, and an end to it, unlike the first 3 episodes, which felt like a hodgepodge of about 4 or 5 episodes into 3.
Well, that's because of all the reshoots.
Yeah, exactly. And not only that, they even said they had
massive
more than
ones.
And not only that,
I just want to give the editors a hug because they must be suffering trying to make this thing make sense.
Mm-hmm.
Well, not just that, they had the they said they had more footage than they had episodes, so they had to recut everything into 10 episodes, even though they had enough for like 12 or 13 or something like that. They said in one interview, like, that's the thing, is they've done everything they can to dance around the fact that they've had to reshoots, rekabobble, re-edit, rewrite, do all kinds of crazy shit. They've had 3 different showrunners practically. I mean, even though still some of the same people are sticking around, it's still a mess. And Shaban tried to make excuses for it, and basically everything he was saying was like everything short of "they made me do it, please don't hate me." You know what I mean? It was like he was trying desperately to come up with some kind of excuse. But yeah, Rob, Mecca, did you guys? I kind of already know the answer. Is there any episodes of this show so far that are worth revisiting at all?
I can't sit through them the first time and pay attention. I even tell people I'm gonna get shit wrong. I can't pay attention to these. These go in one ear and out the other. It is boring and it is a chore to sit through. And I was even not going to review it, and then I realized, oh wait, yeah, they're paying me to do it, so I better, at least try. But I mean, if people get mad at me in the comments, I don't even read them a lot of the time for Picard because I know I'm gonna miss stuff. And if they can't be arsed to make an entertaining show, then I can't be arsed to pay that much attention to it.
I love it when you say that. But yeah, that's totally true. Rob?
No.
I figured that was the answer. All right, let's get back to these super chats. We left off with Captain Hare, $5. Time to torture Rob. Rob, imagine if Picard was watching historical files of Trevor Noah and he was canonically more influential than Jon Stewart. Go.
Stewie Cruz. I don't know where that came from.
Anyway, you've rendered him speechless at this point. You probably just made his brain explode.
You broke him.
It's probably oozing out of his ears.
Well, that's what Star Trek does, though. I mean, it's so I cannot for the life of me make head or tails of this mess. It is clearly a whole bunch of crap thrown together. It is long and it's boring, and it's not like a first season of a TV show where you're just getting to know everybody. It's a first season of a TV show where I actively hate everybody on screen, and the characters that I do know and do like, they're just making them more and more unlikable. So I can't, and as far as like little details and the whys and the this and the that, it's just make it entertaining. You know what? I will gladly concede and say, you know what? Fine. I am no longer going to care and bitch about canon. Just make it not boring. I mean, this is the lowest. This is as low as it's ever gotten for me for Star Trek. Just don't make it boring. Don't make it a whole bunch of things that I don't like from other shows. Don't make it, and clean up your language, please. And I swear like a motherfucker. I don't want to hear it in Star Trek. I keep telling people.
And I even said that earlier in the chat. I'm like, even if Quentin Tarantino took on Star Trek, he is so committed to the original series that I don't even think he would be having F words flying around.
I don't think he would. No, because he understands that, I always use the analogy of it's like going into Tiffany's and seeing a baby diaper on the carpet. And now that's just how it is. Because, there's a dirty baby diaper on the carpet and there's a woman in pajama bottoms. It's like, okay, I'd expect that from Walmart. I don't expect that from Tiffany's. It's
That's
like, okay, I expect trash from your modern day run-of-the-mill garbage TV that I can get at like the CW. I expect trash from CW. I expect trash from everything else. Star Trek is not Walmart. Star Trek is Tiffany's. CW is Walmart or whatever these other new shows are. They can have their little swearing and their F-bombs and their, totally dude sort of language and crap. Class up Star Trek a little. I liked that it was pompous and stuffy. I liked that, Picard got on his high horse. He was not my favorite character in Next Generation at all. He's only in this because of the facepalm meme. That's all they know. These young people who the show's for, they know the facepalm meme. They know Resistance is futile. They know 7 of 9, and they know Data. And that's why those characters are there. And they saw the 2009 movie and liked it a lot because they don't like Star Trek. And, as much as we might disagree with Anti-Trekker, I think he made my point clearly that you're going to enjoy this if you don't like a lot of these elements that made Star Trek. If you're somebody who liked the stuffiness, who liked the fact that they're all listening to classical music, I liked that. If I want to hear them listen to Motorhead, I'll watch Red Dwarf or The Orville. There's a time and a place for that. And It's like, seriously, get your crap out of my Star Trek.
Yeah, well, I have to correct. People in the audience are correcting me. Yes, the Klingons would still swear in a.
Well, yeah, but the Klingons are
that's the
the
thing is you'd
vipers of the
have to have
galaxy.
Samuel L. Jackson in there as a Klingon too.
Yeah,
That would
and that'd be fine.
amazing.
And that'd be fine to have the Klingons swearing because that's what they do.
What was that, Anna?
They'd be cussing in Klingon, not in English.
Exactly, but
Yeah.
you have to have Samuel L. as one of the Klingons.
Yeah,
if that-
that
I would
be
love to
awesome.
hear Samuel L. Jackson cussing Klingon.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, could you imagine like one of Quentin Tarantino's like big bust out shoot up scenes with Klingons? Like that would be legit. I mean, I'm a sucker. I'm a really big Quentin Tarantino fan. So when I heard that, I was like, yes. And then I found out it's not going to happen. I was like, well, it makes sense because he doesn't feel like he was put on this earth to do like to adapt other people's work. He likes coming up with his own stories and stuff. So I understand as far as that, but also he's not going to put up with the constraints that they would want to put up or want to put him in. So
All right, let's get through some more of these super chats here. Appreciate everybody's patience on both sides here. Jaber, oh, this is the one I left off. Stargate 404 sent us $5. When they're escaping the bird of prey, why does the crew speak Spanish? Universal translator on the fritz? I think we covered a little bit of that earlier in the conversation, but I don't know if anybody else has anything. I've gotten to the point where I just stopped questioning those kind of things in this show.
well, I don't think they know what a universal translator is because they haven't talked about it once and they just keep having people speak different languages. Like even with
Yes.
Picard speaking French, and I'm like, do you guys not know the whole backstory that they had to create because they hired an Englishman to play a Frenchman? Like,
The French that the British just stormed across the English Channel in like 2173 and said, "That's it. We've had enough of you wine swilling
French
cheeseheads."
people or something. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's just they didn't do any research. I don't think they know what a universal translator is.
Probably not. That's why they had I mean, they just like having these actors recite these long, drawn out dialogue scenes in languages that they struggle with.
Just make them read the Babelfish section of Hitchhiker's Guide.
Yeah, and that's the biggest problem, or that's one of the bigger problems too. I'm like, oh my god, now we're gonna have a long drawn out Romulan scene where they're speaking in Romulan, and I tune out. I don't care what they're saying. It's the same thing with the Klingorks in Discovery. You know, the 27-minute long Klingon dialogue scenes. I don't know what the crap they were talking about. I just tune out. I start surfing the internet. You know, I'll get up and get something to drink. Oh my god, they're still going because they speak slowly because they're actors clearly. Yeah.
Well, even when Soji was watching that little hologram of the Borg Romulan lady, and it's in Romulan, and there's subtitles. I'm like, universal translators, this would have been translated immediately to whatever the person that's watching it, whatever language they speak. How do they not understand that?
Because they don't like Star Trek. It's a show that doesn't want to be Star Trek. It wants to be anything but Star Trek. It wants to be space Trump Orange Man bad border drama. You know, that's
Even like when I used to watch movies about ancient Rome when I was a kid, do they really think? Does Alex Kurtzman really think that they all spoke with British accents? No, they probably spoke Italian or they probably spoke Latin. But at the same time, it's just fucking easier, please.
Right. It's that kind of that suspension of disbelief. Yeah.
It keeps you engaged in this story if they all speak English. Just please.
It means that I don't have to stop it, go back because I missed part of it, and I have to like read the subtitles on the screen when you've got 1,000 things shining in my face because you have lens flare up the ass.
It's
And
like
that's
that
the other problem. I
movie-
can't even look at the show most of the time.
It's like that movie 10,000 BC. The fact that they spoke English was the least of that movie's problems.
See, I'm one of the very people that actually likes that movie.
It's all right, but I'm just saying, like, as far as like its inconsistencies with reality, I mean,
Yeah,
that's
it's
like the least of the movie's
dinosaurs
problems.
in this jungle.
So the fact, if you have to stop and say, wait a minute, they're speaking fucking English, they should be going ugh ugh, then then you got a problem. I mean,
Like
normally
Quest for
that's
Fire.
yeah, that's normally not a thing where you're stopping yourself and going, wait a minute, they shouldn't be speaking English.
But at the same time, in The Godfather, you have to have seen they have to speak Italian in that.
It makes more sense.
Yeah, because it makes more sense. Michael has been raised in America all his life, and now he's out of his element.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how you show that. And now he's in a place that is culturally and just completely foreign to him.
That's not
so you
okay.
have to,
That's my
They
favorite.
did that in The Next Generation when Riker did the exchange program, and he had to go be on a Klingon ship, and he was speaking
I
in
love that
Klingon,
episode.
like, and he's eating the Klingon food. And
Speaking of, isn't that in season 2?
Yeah.
Sorry,
see,
Anna.
Season 2.
that's one of those things where I'm like, okay, I understand if you don't like it and you want to say, things about it, but that's just your opinion. There's a lot of great episodes that are in the first few seasons of The Next Generation that, I mean, I liked them, and there's messages in them. It does get overdrawn with the over-the-top stuff, and, I just remember being, young and watching it with my dad and be like, oh, this is a grown-up scene, because there's lots of, sexual innuendos in it and being uncomfortable, but it didn't make the story bad. It was just more grown up.
maybe you could have one of the women breastfeed you. That was
Well, that's my point too, Anna. Is like everybody always shits on the first few seasons of TNG, but yet a lot of the stuff we always call back to or pull from is generally from those first.
Yeah, and
few
the
seasons.
problem, the thing that they keep forgetting is, they always want to counter an argument with, oh well, they had this already, they did this already. Well, you don't have a problem with it. The baseline of this is that, yeah, I could overlook a few inconsistencies in canon. I could overlook some changes. I could overlook some silly moments. I could overlook some out of character moments or some, swearing here and there from time to time, like Data saying shit in Generations or whatever he said. And because I was entertained, because I liked these characters. They weren't yelling at me if I said, well, that was a dumb episode. Nobody got on their high horse to call me a racist, a sexist, if I had a problem with an episode in the past, right? Even when I said, and this is the thing, I did not like Deep Space Nine when it came out. I did not like Voyager after a couple of seasons, and I stopped watching for a while. Nobody called me a racist or a sexist for any of that. We never got into these huge debates, and granted, the internet wasn't the way it is now, and the instant feedback isn't the way it is now, but if you said, yeah, I stopped watching Voyager because it kind of went and sucked, and then I later came back to it and have a new appreciation for it, and it became one of my favorites. It was never this thing where I'm like, no, this is just so bad, I do not want to watch this, even coming back to it. I don't even feel like they need to have a second chance, because the fan base has become so toxic, yelling at us, calling us every name under the sun for criticizing it. And that's where a lot of the problems started, is they started catering to this younger demographic of fans who automatically think you're a racist or a sexist if you don't like it. They automatically think that your criticisms mean that they aren't allowed to like it, because they're these fragile little snowflakes that don't understand that, you know what, you go like your thing. Don't listen to what, if you don't like what we're saying, don't listen to us. You can disagree with us. You can piss off too if you disagree with us. But that's the other thing.
I remember your post the other day where somebody like tagged all of us, and it's like, oh, look, this person did a video on all you guys. And it's like, I don't think any of us, I'm going to speak for myself because I'm not going to assume for you guys, but I mean, I saw Mecca confirm it. It's like, I don't go and watch videos on topics that I'm not interested in. I don't have any interest in watching a video where somebody is hating on me or hating on one of my friends. I have a billion other things to do. So when people go and like, oh, because they're so offended that someone on the internet has an opinion on a TV show about Star Trek that they don't like, they're going to go and spend however long it takes them to make a video hating on all of these different people. It's like, if you don't like what somebody else is saying, go watch another channel. You have to watch it.
Here's the thing with all the fandoms we've dealt with. Star Wars, yeah, they're pretty bad, but
Star
Trek is
Trek's
the
worst.
It's the worst.
They get more than personal. They get way deep into. You get some. Yeah, I'm not even going to get into it. But let's move on with these super chats. Here's an idea: beam up the Romulans and hold them in a giant transporter buffers like Scotty and Relics. Insurrection also established moving populations and ships with giant holodecks. Right? That's what I don't get. Like, we've made this thing like moving an established society around is not a big deal. Like it happened, it seemed to happen all the time in all the old shows and movies. I don't understand why.
Heck, the whole Cardassian War is about moving and relocating people in the final seasons of TNG and parts of DS9.
And the fact that we have to keep sitting here and debating this shit, and I love Andy Trekker, don't get me wrong, but the fact that he has to pull out a map and make, go through 20 different hoops to explain this shit to us.
It's still not entertaining.
It just goes to show you how convoluted and stupid it is from the start to even try to even.
Yeah, the fact that we have to have somebody go in and do the math, write a book, fill in all these backstories, like that is the problem with the show. Yeah, we can forgive little stupid inconsistencies. We can forgive the Klingons look different in TOS. They explained it later. We forgave it because all the shows that did that were entertaining and they were enjoyable and they had characters that were likable. And that is the biggest thing in entertainment now is they forget that they have to make it entertaining.
And they have such an entertaining premise. I mean, a ticking clock of a supernova barreling down on several planets in a system, like that's something I kind of want to watch.
Yeah, but they didn't want to write that show. They wanted to deal with space Trump, space Brexit. They wanted to deal with all of these racial issues, speciesist issues, and all that stuff. And I'm like, I don't want to deal with that shit in reality. Why the hell do I want to watch that on Star Trek, dealt by people who are not smart enough to know anything about politics other than Orange Man bad? And that's my biggest. That's the biggest complaint. I think everyone is the biggest complaint. I think.
Right, and then Namco has a super chat that goes right along with that. 10 pounds. Sorry, but a galaxy-destroying, threatening star would be so unimaginably big that it would probably stick out like a sore thumb in the galaxy. Plus, isn't there a star size limit?
I think a neutron star is the biggest, and then there's a B-type star after that.
Mm-hmm. I don't science very well, and that's where I'll be honest with you guys. I'm even compared to like. Probably Script Doctor, who, I mean, I know, but I don't know how big of a Star Trek fan, but just from talking to him, and I know from Anna, from her telling me about the fact that she's been into it for so long with her family involved and all that kind of stuff. I am the, novice when it comes to Star Trek stuff here.
You're kind of more the casual fan. Yeah, you like it, but you're the casual. You're not the one who's studying the star charts and the ships. I think I'm somewhere sort of in between. I'm not studying all the star charts, but I remember a lot of this stuff, and I've rewatched it so many times that a lot of it kind of absorbs.
Right. I'm closer to the normie, and the problem is none of these shows are bringing me in. They're not engaging me. They're not. And Picard was your shot. Because I know Picard. He's one of my... You ask me who my favorite captain is, it's tough for me to pick between Kirk and Picard. Yeah. It's tough. So that's my point is you had your shot with this show. We're 4 episodes in.
People were dipping after 2. That's what people kept telling me because of the language and how boring it was and stupid it was. They were dipping after 2 episodes.
Right. Full disclosure, Yellow Flash was supposed to be on here with us, but he hadn't seen the last couple episodes, I don't think.
Yeah. Yeah, he said he was going to dip after episode 2. And that's what I kept seeing in my comment section, too. People are like, oh, did they fix the F-bombs? No. Here's some more of them. And or was it F-bomb? I don't remember what she said.
And the whole, that's the thing with me is most of my knowledge outside of the episodes that I saw, obviously, in the movies is my into this whole thing was Star Trek 4. And that sets up a lot of rules, and people were pointing them out just a little bit ago in the chat. The whole thing about colorful metaphors, the whole thing about Kirk having to explain to everybody that they have money in the 20th century, all kinds of other little things that have to do with the Star Trek universe that they had to feed to us in that movie. But it's great because that's what makes that movie work on its own without any other movies to go along with it. You can watch Star Trek 4 as just this movie about these guys who come from the future who need a fucking whale. That's all it's about. And let comedy ensue because they haven't been around, they're going 200, 300 years in the past or whatever,
Fish out of water, grabbing a fish to bring back to the future.
Exactly. A super metaphor, right?
I totally know that they're mammals, but yes, that's the thing.
Yes, there be whales.
Yeah, and that was probably one of their best movies. That's my favorite movie, I think. Even though I can accept The Wrath of Khan is better technically and better written and better acted and a better story. This, I was more entertained by Star Trek 4, and that's kind of how I judge it. How entertained was I? And I'm not entertained by Picard.
Star Trek 4 was like a Star Trek episode, but in a movie.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, there's nothing wrong with doing that. And this whole concept, like, okay, one of the things about Voyager was that they had that goal. So that was what made it different than all the ones that came before it, is because they have to go and they have to achieve this. Whereas every episode of the Next Gen was, okay, we're going to go on this mission. And then the next episode, we go on this mission. And yes, there was little things that built up. So when they had a season finale, it would be, you know, this big thing that had been building up for a while, but it was slightly mentioned in each episode, or, you know, in a few episodes. So I don't understand. Well, why don't they just do that? If they don't have a clear plan, just do a bunch of episodes where it's, you know, Picard going on this mission, everything gets resolved in one episode, and have little clues that it's going to lead to an overarching plot.
Right.
There's
And
nothing wrong with doing that.
No, there's nothing wrong with that either. But like, at least, like I said, at least this fourth episode, even though it is a serialized show, felt the most self-contained. It felt like it was a beginning, middle, and end as far as, you know, in television, you actually write, what, 4 acts or 5 acts, which is a script doctor.
Depends. If it's an hour long, it's usually 5 acts. So
That's
you got
right.
your opening and 3 in the middle, and then your denouement. In half-hour stuff, it's like 4. It all depends on the editing.
It's different for television than it is for movies, was my whole point. So yeah, this actually felt like a coherent show. Now, that's not speaking to the actual writing and what was in the episode, but it was a show. If you get what I'm saying. I don't know if everybody understands what I'm getting at here.
Yeah, I felt
structurally wise, yes, it was better.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at. Yeah, structurally wise, it works as a show this time. We finally have one episode of this show that actually feels like a complete episode. Charles Kane, $5. Why are they not using transwarp beaming? It was invented 80 years earlier. Again, that's the problem with this whole having to evacuate. It opens up. We live in a period in the show where a lot of these questions are easily answered. And once you start adding in the political, bureaucratical crap, and again, and I'm not trying to say anything because Annie Trekker's not here to defend himself, but yeah, there's been times where members of Starfleet have been showed to be bad guys or
disreputable.
Disreputable, but that doesn't mean all of Starfleet. And we're getting to a point here now where it's really like, okay, you have this system that was functioning so well through how many 100 years, you know, between the original series to now, and up till now everything's been fine, and now all of a sudden everything's like the whole problem with the whole thing with, you know, SHIELD being taken over by Hydra. You know, it's like it took them this long to do it. But I mean, again, it works in the context of those movies. But is that what's going on here? Is it really that deep? Even if still, that's not all of Starfleet. Because
what are they going to do? Retroactively say the Romulans have been slowly taking over the Federation for the last 100 years, which is why they've been away for so long?
Right, and that's my point. Is like you've already seen this story in Star Trek 6, where they had the whole thing between the Vulcans and the Klingons. And that shit. So, you know, we've already kind of seen, and that's when the whole thing, I didn't get a chance to say it to Annie Trekker. And again, I hate saying it now that he's not here to defend himself, but that's the problem with Kurtzman and gang, is all they do is copy and paste. They can't come up with something new. And I know somebody else said that in the chat earlier, and I wanted to point that out. That's the biggest problem with these guys, is instead of coming up with something, you know, and like going back to what Rob said earlier too, we want Star Trek, but you can give us something new and refreshing within the Star Trek universe, but still make it Trek. And Orville's a perfect example of that. As close to that is to TNG, it's still got enough original elements about it that if you put that in the Trek world, that would be like something you've never seen in Star Trek before. Like I pointed out in my first reviews of Orville, it's like watching Star Trek but getting to see the toilet for once.
Oh God.
Because I mean, it's just the point. We never get to see the toilet on Star Trek. We normally don't get to see the guys who are, you know, the plumbers and the not the guys that you call, you know, when you need help. They're the last guys you call when you need help, you know.
Yeah, and that's a great take. And I mean, when I first heard of the Lower Decks premise for the show, I thought, oh, that would be cool. Like we get to see like, you know, the undercrew stuff. But if it's going to be done through Secret Hideout, it's like, count me out. I'll give it a shot if it ever is released. But
well, what's sad about that panel is that's one of the ones that Mecca and Rob and I were all at. There was nobody there. There was more people at some of the technical panels. There was more people, I mean, at some of the technical panels than they were at the Lower Deck panels. Like it was a dead room. What's also sad about that is that's the only show they seem like they actually give a shit about any kind of canon or
Yeah, the writers actually seem to care. They seem to be out there. They're like, oh yeah, and I went out and I watched every episode of Star Trek and learned this and that, and they seem to.
Well, I think the one guy said even though he was a fan, he rewatched them all.
Yeah, and and it's gonna be like, they said like, oh well, there's all this big thing going on. Well, Data and Worf are stuck in the elevator, and it's all the B stories, which could be fun. I mean, I don't know how long it's going to, hold as a premise and not just wear really, really thin, but
well, especially up against something like Orville, which is already 3 seasons
really
deep, and we've seen a lot of this kind of thing already. That's
exactly.
The only thing you've got going for you is it's copyrighted, and it's not the parody. It's but that's just it, and that's where my question I was trying to come through, but they wouldn't let me kind of ask it, and they already kind of answered it in the beginning. Was, don't you feel like this is going to be taking too much of a piss on Star Trek to do it inside of Star Trek? Especially, what are you going to do to have to out Orville the Orville? That's the other problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they kind of talked around that, and they're like, well, it's not going to compete. It's in its own universe. We're officially licensed.
There's enough room for both of them to exist, or whatever it was there.
It's like, yeah, but, all right. So it'll be like Babylon 5 and Deep Space Nine. One will be the official, and one will be the one that's the knockoff that does it better, right?
Exactly. And that was kind of the whole, that was really the whole feeling I got from the whole panel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're going to have the official one that's like meh.
Yeah. All right, let's move on. Clinging Mars with $2 says all he had to say was Latinum instead of cash. Yeah, I mean that's the thing. Like I said earlier, we've had other established, money,
resources or currency. It's some sort of trade economy. That's the best I can figure out. It's not traditional money, but it's some sort of trade.
Right, but that's what bothered me about that chick, Raffi, and her whole bitch, is that her status may have been lowered, but that doesn't mean that her actual living status should have been lowered, because within Starfleet, within the system we have here, those kind of things don't seem to matter anymore from everything we've gathered. And that's, I think, and again, not to rag on any Trekker since he's not here, but I don't think he gets that aspect of where we're coming from on that. It's like, yeah, but we've already established that we live in this world where, poverty isn't a thing anymore. Hunger isn't a thing anymore. Class isn't really a thing anymore. And now you're trying to make this a whole show about class again. And that's what we've had so many things hitting us in the face with the class difference. Look at the whole Romulan thing when he goes to get Legolas, I mean,
it feels like if you lived on Earth in the 24th century, you'd have to work really, 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 really hard to be poor and destitute.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you'd almost have to choose that life.
Well, also those people that are writing this, I'm assuming they're in LA and in California. And so right now, with the whole refugee thing, and then with all of the homeless that are here, because one of the things that they do, I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but when winter comes around from the East Coast, they have programs where they get homeless people on buses and bring them out to, Los Angeles, Orange County, San Diego, and San Francisco. And so that's why, when people talk about that, because they have all the programs in these places for people that, live in poverty to attempt to help them. But now there's so many. And so I don't know, just the way that I've been watching the show and the things, yes, they're trying to shove politics down our throat, which I don't like to get into. Especially American politics right now, but they're trying to get into that when it's like, in show symbolism for that stuff with Star Trek. And I'm like, okay, well, you can do that, but it, like you guys are saying, it doesn't make sense. And one of the things that I kept listening back to was how Raffi said, oh, well, I lost my pension and this, but when we first see her in the flashback with her and Picard, he resigned. And then she says that she's going to go and get fired, or like she's getting called because she's going to get canned. And I was like, okay, so you got fired, which means if in this world, yes, you have money now. Okay, if you get fired, you get severance. And I'm assuming you had a lot of that since, you were in Starfleet. I'm assuming you were.
Why did she get fired for following orders, though? Is that
right? Well, even if she did, like in BA says this, Raffi lived like that because she chose to. Well, if she chose to, then why is she blaming Picard? That's what we're getting at here. It creates this circle thing where the snake eats its own tail, where you keep asking yourself, like, Why?
Mhm.
It's like she doesn't become less valuable as a human with her skills just because she got fired from Starfleet. Okay, you remember the episode where Picard goes back to Earth and his best friend is like, hey, like, I want you to work on the Atlantis project. Like, you'll have this great job. You'll be in charge of this. It's like, people, you worked in Starfleet. There's people out there in the galaxy that are going to want to use you and your skills and your former Starfleet knowledge.
Right.
Exactly.
Yep.
Even 7 of 9, Belana Torres.
Especially
Belana
somebody
Torres,
with a drug problem who can be easily manipulated and is really good at hacking and doing all kinds of cool shit like she is. But anyway, that's where you break down and the writing turns to shit. You can't have this really cool character and yet have this
And make them a loser at life.
Yeah, this
By
contradictory
circumstances,
thing.
it has to be of choice. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so and not to like cut everybody off here, but we really got to get moving through these super chats.
Yeah.
Nelson Sharetta sent us $5. There's an episode of DS9 where Jake wants to buy a baseball card and asks Rom for money. Jake flatly says, we don't need money. That's canon. All right, and that goes right back to what you were saying about Star Trek 4 and some of the other things that, yeah, there's certain civilizations that have established they have currency, but for the most part, for the Starfleet and all that kind of stuff, it's obviously like a credit system or something set up that people are not paid or they don't have like a system like we do now. It's pretty much, from my recollection from everything, like, you know, you do your job, and it's, I don't want to say it's a communist system because it does seem like some people obviously are higher up, you know, like respect wise and all. It seems like you're more like in a prestige than you are by how much you get paid. Everybody though,
it still feels like capitalism, but without the direct monetary thing. Like the skill is the monetization. The skill is where
you're paid to do a job, and you know, if you don't do a job, you find it, you're encouraged to do artistic endeavors that might not pay anything. You know, like be a musician. You're
not compelled to do terrible work, but if you're really good at something, you're encouraged to follow it, and hopefully you become happy as a result.
That's the point I got from the way it's explained in the shows, from everything, is that, yeah, basically you're basically born with a situation where you don't have to worry about eating and having a home to live in, so just do what you're good at. Find your passion, kind of thing. That's the kind of society that we live in.
Mm-hmm.
And
I'm
some
okay
people
with that.
choose to go to Starfleet, yeah.
Yeah, and some people choose to have a big pile of latinum, and some people... You know, but that's the thing. If you're in Starfleet, though, why would she get herself fired? I think I might have missed that or zoned out because, and that's
the thing was that she was blaming Picard for getting fired when they knew the risk going in, and that was what we were saying in the last roundtable. Was this is a thing that's a constant in Star Trek, where you know you have the captain say, "Look, y'all could get, you know, demoted or worse, and we could lose our lives and worse, and blah blah blah." And everybody's like, well, when do we get going? We're losing time. You know, they all know the risks. They're willing to follow their captain into battle. And that's what it seemed like she was doing, is she was willing to stand behind her captain on this, in which case then you're willing to take, you know, what risks there are that could come down. But then you set up the problem is she's sitting there blaming Picard for her place in life when that doesn't make sense in the structure of the system we have, to where that's the whole thing is like, okay, so she's choosing to live out in the desert in what she considers shitty living conditions, getting fucked up all day, doing nothing. So why? And that seems to be the common thing going through here, is they keep trying to make Picard old man bad, old white man bad, but every choice that people have made, even though they're trying to blame Picard for it, besides the kid's the only one who has a genuine gripe with him, if you ask me, is that everybody's like, they could have done something to change their place in life. The only one who really sincerely had Picard say that they were going to come do something about it and he didn't, and really let them down, was that kid.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And screw that kid.
Because really, that's what they do. They set him up for the last 10 years. He's done nothing but sit in his vineyard. And we've all agreed that, you know, even if he doesn't like kids, he said he was going to find a home for that kid. He's got more than enough room. He's got more than enough help to raise the kid, and enough people around him and their Romulans and all that kind of shit. Bring the kid to the fucking vineyard. Duh.
Well, also, it's like you're telling me, so there was no other Romulans in this that lost their children that would want a child.
The 2 refugees he has in his home couldn't take him in.
Exactly, that was my point.
Oh, no. It's like, so you're telling me there's no one out there that wants a child that can't have one. they didn't work hard enough to find that
No,
kid.
but Picard needed one 10 years down the road that knows how to fight.
But that's the point
That's
of the
why.
show, is that he let the kid down. You're missing
Instead
the
of
point.
setting it up that instead of setting it up that the nuns say no, it's the right thing to do to take care of this kid, you know, blah 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 or something like that. Nope, they had to have it the other way just because. And that's where the writing breaks down on these shows. And
Did you
that's the
guys
problem.
notice this? Because it was something that I went with the whole thing with the kid. When the nun said this, it was something that I realized, but it was that little aha moment. And we talked about this before, how all the officials in Starfleet, they're all women, but you know, they're total C words. And all of these strong, empowered women, the same thing. They're all evil, or, you know, they're Mary Sue's. And then when the nun was saying, oh yeah, well, you know, he can't technically be a nun ninja because he's not a woman.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh my God, they literally just
I am so making a comic book called Nun Ninjas.
because this would be a typical thing if, you know, it was a bunch of monks and, oh yeah, well, she can be one, or, you know, we trained her, but she's a female. Females can't be
Oh
this.
yeah, imagine how people would lose their minds if it was the other
Well,
way
I mean,
around.
that's something that I feel like I've seen many times before in, you know, movies or comic books.
But
or
that's
even,
kind of the whole point of Milan and a few other stories. Yeah, is that
yeah,
the woman
is
always
that
proves
it's
them wrong.
a woman
Yeah.
that did it, and that kind of stuff, you know, Mulan, that's empowering to see. But now they did it the exact opposite with a man. Oh, men aren't allowed in this, but you know, he's trained, so we're gonna send the man off with you to go do this. And I'm like, funny how they're doing that.
I at least give him
Guy
credit.
fights like a girl now, I guess.
Well, not only that, at least she says he's a formidable foe, but just too bad he could never be an official Jesuit sister or whatever the fuck it is. Bene Jesuits from the Dune thing. Yeah. Anyway, no, moving on here. We got so many super chats, and I apologize everybody who sent these in. We appreciate them so much. You've been so patient, waiting to hear your super chat. Stargate 404 says it's $5. Pledging a sword only to a lost cause was the most Kurtzman-like thing. Elrond might as well have said, and you shall have my sword, Jean-Luc Baggins. Yeah, it was so kind of, I caught that too. It was very like, God, you just can't stop yourself from ripping everything off, can you?
Not only that, the allegory is great because it's like, oh, we're watching a show about a lost cause. That's a lost cause. I'm like, okay.
That's very on point as well. I don't know if anybody wants to add anything to that, but we're gonna move on here. I think this is €2. Zero FPV sent us €2. TNG season 1 episode 26. All you need to know about federal and dollars.
What episode was that? I want to write it down.
Episode Sadie, season 1 26.
Oh, episode 1, yeah, that's
Which one is that?
that is the last episode of Star Trek where they find the humans from the late 90s frozen in a satellite out in space, and then they also encounter the Romulans for the first time again after like 80 years.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. I think that had to be like the last episode of the season or close to it.
Yeah, because the one
Back when they
before
used to
that
do
is
that
with
many
the
episodes, wow.
the parasites that take over the Admiralty, and then they have to go back to Earth and phaser that guy.
God, remember that when they used to do like 25, 26, almost 30 episodes a season? Then they went down to like 24, then it was 22. Now we're lucky if we get 15 for most. That's
Yeah,
right,
when
Sadie.
cable channels started to get bigger, that's when episode orders got smaller.
All right, Matt G sent us $5. Your thoughts on the story that Kurtzman punched a TV because of Doomcock? I hope it's true. He deserves to have Doomcock living rent-free in his head. Nah, we all knew it was kind of plants, and I even said that on After Dark. That
Well, the story
way
that
back
I
in some of
heard,
the first ones, yeah.
the stories that we've been hearing, and I think Gary's heard this too, but this is from completely different sources, was that the producers like Michelle Paradise and Alex Kurtzman have to kind of take a time out whenever any of us are mentioned. You know, like if people say, oh yeah, but what about the YouTubers? You know, what about the Fandom Menace people? And then they're like, and then they got to go out of the room for a couple minutes. But
yeah,
no, I hadn't heard.
Yeah, these latest stories, though, we've been saying since the whole Seth MacFarlane's going to buy Star Trek. That's been bullshit. We've been saying that in the videos. We've been saying it on After Dark. And we've been saying this shit feels planted, and then the Red Dwarf thing came, and I'm like, no, this is
and that one I
completely
flat out
bullshit.
said this is like specifically designed to get me to yell about it. And you know what? I thank them for 10,000 views on a video, and
Yeah,
amen.
and it's just people trying to start bullshit, trying to make us report on stuff that's bullshit, and all you're doing is making all these other papers pick it up and stuff. And
Yeah,
I don't know
you're
what you
giving
think
us
you're
a crap
accomplishing.
ton of clicks. We're just laughing all the way to the ad revenue on these. And, you know, thank you.
Because-
They're
yeah,
entertaining because we always
because-
flat out say this sounds like bullshit.
As far as the whole TV thing, no, we can't. We have no idea if that's true. But before even these bullshit things, oh yeah, we've heard that they don't like us, that they don't like Nerdrotic, they don't like Midnight's Edge, they don't like Mecha, they don't like Doomcock. There's a few other names that have come up in the past, and that's their problem, their prerogative. And you know, 9 times out of 10, all that tells me is we're getting to them, we're living rent free in their head, or however you want to put it. And they haven't tried to stop us yet. They haven't done anything to. They never can really go out there.
That's actually not
completely...
true. No, that's not true. I've had them go in and manually strike.
Well, that's
videos
different. Yeah,
just
that's
because I let it leak that Alex
bullshit.
Kurtzman had no series order for the Section 31 show. So, yeah, they did that last year. I put out a completely unrelated video and they struck it, or they went and struck something else because of that whole. Alex Kurtzman admitted on camera and microphone that he had no Section 31 series order, and I don't believe they still do. I think that they are still filming season 3.
They haven't, yeah. And just like they're still filming season 3, and Doug Jones said just the other day that there's still no season 4 yet. So.
Yeah, they have not been asked back for a season 4. The call list in the studio in Vancouver says it's not in Vancouver, it's in Toronto. It's Pinewood, Toronto. It says there is just indefinitely nothing. So,
and the funny thing is, and the ironic thing is all these people who like to claim that we make up bullshit, which is funny because all we do is, if it's a rumor, we report it as a rumor. If it's something one of our sources say, we still say take it with a grain of salt, what have you. But the funny thing is they're the same ones that are planting all these other bullshit stories. And I'm not talking about the stuff on 4chan. All that does is nobody's ever going to trust 4chan ever again anyway. Not that they really trusted it to begin with, but they just never will.
Yeah, we always said take it with a grain of salt.
So you just ruin that avenue for anybody who does want to go out and get anything real out there. They're not going to go to 4chan now. But anyway, that's not even the point here. The other point is they're making up these stories like they're making the stories like Mecha, like the ones where there's a season 4 and a 5 already greenlit of Discovery. I know, but they'll send you these stories, right? And they'll try and get you to report on them. These are the same people who try to claim we make shit up. That's exactly what they're fucking doing. There's no proof to any of this. Yeah.
Not only that, the leaks were absolutely 100% true that I reported on, you know, where, and the girl Doge dies at the end of episode 1. Yes, she did. Those were the leaks I reported on.
And those were the ones that we did too.
True.
And those turned out to be true. And that's why they tried to trick us, but we're not that stupid.
Yeah, but I didn't make a
trying to
video about
play like
Doomcock punching or Alex Kurtzman punching a TV over Doomcock.
And I didn't say it on the air where I think they originated from, but I said it to a lot of you guys behind the scenes for, you know, and you guys.
Oh, I know exactly who originated it.
Well, not just who, but where. Yeah, I know.
I know exactly.
Both know. We know. We're not stupid. We figured this shit out. You guys think that we're stupid?
Because,
that's the
here's the thing. If you have a sock puppet account on Twitter and I go in to block you, I will go in and look and see who you follow, who follows you, and I can find you.
Well, not only that, they're stupid enough to make an account 9 times out of 10. They'll have the exact same 3 or 4 accounts follow them, so it's not hard to figure it out. Yeah,
exactly. It's the same 3 people.
It's you guys think you're smart, but you're not.
They're really not, because then they're like, ha ha ha, you said this. Yeah, I said it was a rumor, and I got paid a lot of money on it.
It just goes to show you didn't watch the fucking video.
No, they don't.
Yeah, that's the main thing is a lot of people don't actually watch it, and then they go and bitch about you, and they have like 10 sock puppet accounts on Twitter. So that way, when you rebuttal one, all of their other accounts, they just have logged in probably on different pages, and then they go and comment. So you get spammed by all of them, and it's like, I know you're the same person, and there is ways to track the IP address, and you can see that if you know how to do that kind of stuff.
Well, not even going to that extent, but just,
Well, you can also tell in people's like mannerisms, the way that they type things. You can tell.
Well, exactly. You've dealt with a lot of shit, and I know Mecha and the women of the Fandom Menace deal with more shit than anybody. Period. I've seen some of the most nastiest shit that you guys have had to deal with, and it's just uncalled for.
Oh yeah, they'll say stuff to women pretending to be like, these progressive SJW types. They will say things to women that they deserve to be slapped in the face for.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
seriously.
Go look at my timeline from the past 3 days.
Mhm.
It's absolutely insane. But the one thing about that is because they can't read my Twitter handle that says girl in it, but them immediately jumping to the, oh, you're just, misogynistic man. I'm like, well, no, I'm a woman. And seeing them try to counteract, the argument without falling back on, oh, you're a misogynistic man. It's kind of hilarious how watching them self-combust. But then they say, oh, well, you're just doing this because you want to please men. I'm like, well, no, that's not it at all. You obviously don't know shit about me. But watching them just go from, oh, believe all women are good, but then the second a woman has a different opinion, it's okay to say horrible things about her. It blows my mind how hypocritical people are.
Yep, and yeah, that's the thing is these people they think they're trolling us, when in fact you've been getting trolled for an entire year. That's the whole point. Is you don't watch the videos, you just look at the thumbnail and the title or whatever, and you misread that as well, and then you go around acting like you got some gotcha, when it's really like you motherfuckers have been getting got the whole time. You don't even realize it.
Oh
But
yeah,
anyway,
look at my most recent Star Trek video where it's like, oh yes, rumors true ? Discovery canceled. No Discovery season 4 totally confirmed ? Section 31 no more. And they're gonna say, oh, you said Discovery was canceled. I'm like, no, I said as of now, Doug Jones says there is no Discovery season 4. They haven't been called back for it. Watch the video. Also, here's like 5-minute sidetrack ramble about all of these bot farms and bot accounts that they're creating. So yeah. That's all that is. But no, they take the thumbnail and they think that's what it is. And I'm putting disclaimers in here too. I've been putting disclaimers in the videos just for when because I can lay a trap a little bit better because I'm smarter. So I say disclaimer: the thumbnail is designed to entice viewers to watch the video. Nowhere in this video does it state Discovery or Section 31 is 100% canceled, nor does it state any rumor we talk about is fact. This is designed to be entertaining and pass on what I know in a fun way that helps people make up their own minds.
no, that's.
There you
I
go.
mean, as far as what
And also,
you do,
I'm
that's
not a
definitely-
news channel. Haha, I'm not a news channel. I'm not a reporter. I don't report things. I talk about them. And I make a video and we cover them. We're not reporting anything.
Yeah,
like
this is
news.
the other thing. Like, I know I'm not even going to say a stupid name, but because I've tried to reason with the guy and he's down. He's got such tunnel vision that it doesn't matter. He thinks that he's another one who got you.
No,
Dukak said flat out where he got it from, and it was a rumor. Good
and that's
God.
the thing. That's the thing. These people who are they're trying really, really desperately to get hired on to their little global franchise group of podcasts and accounts, Twitter accounts, social media people, all of these sort of things. They're really trying desperately because they want to meet Star Trek people. That's all they want to do. They want to kiss up to the producers and the actors and the celebrities by thinking that they're going to notice them and pat them on their little stupid heads. And that's, seriously, grow a life. It's just Star Trek. Let me do my thing and fix it for everybody, children. So you can actually go and pay all your money to the conventions and kiss the butts of all the celebrities that you want. Meanwhile, I'm here trying to get a better show for all of us. And then we can worry about, going and spending $200 to get a photo and an autograph. Can we do that? Because that's what you guys want to do with your Star Trek. And you want to yell at me for fixing the quality of the show for everybody. So maybe there's 5,000 people at the next convention instead of 200.
What's funny is how these groups like to tag me and shit like anymore. It's like I care.
Well, I've
Anyhow.
blocked most of them. I'll go in and block them.
Yeah,
Don't give a fuck
it's just
about
like
it.
whatever. Let's move on from that because we spent way longer on that than I wanted to. And again, I reiterate, some of these super chats are going to be out of order. So if we do miss anybody's, please wait till near the end so we make sure we actually missed it and it just didn't get mixed up in the discombobulation. Where did we leave off here? I think the next one is DeWall sent us $5. Producers, writers, none of them are fans. Episodes run like they want on Amazon. Read the short description of what Star Trek episode is.
That's what I've been saying.
Yep. That's pretty much it. Yeah. Well, and that's the other thing is they don't want fans writing it. We've talked about this before because then they're just a problem. They get too wrapped up in canon and other bullshit and characters.
I mean,
actual
I
things that
have
matter.
said I'll drive. It's an hour drive. I will drive up to LA. You can pay me in hot Cheetos and chocolate, and I will sit there and just be the little person that says, "Oh, that's inaccurate to the lore. That fix this and this." I will be that person. I'll sit in the back, drawing on my little tablet with my candy, and then when you have a question,
I'll pay them. I will pay them to do it.
We already
I know,
do.
like, I'll come. I'll help you. You don't
But
have
that's what
to pay me a salary.
that's what the famous
Michelle
group,
Paradise is supposed to be doing that, right?
yeah, well, there was that whole group they had that was supposed to be doing that, and we all asked ourselves throughout into the entirety of Discovery is what are they there for? And we heard.
Now, I've heard from other sources that the canon experts are not being listened to. Like they'll say something, and they're just as frustrated as we are. So now I've heard. Now take that with a grain of salt, because it's just somebody who has worked with actors in production things on other projects. But this person is a reasonably reliable source. But they've said, yeah, you're assuming that the people going in that were hired to kind of correct them for canon are not saying these things. So no, they're saying it. They're just not being listened to. From what
we heard was they're just basically there to tell them if they are getting into grounds that they hadn't already covered before, like basically Simpsons did it. Like all they were supposed to do is tell them if the episode was too much like another episode that already happened.
And that's all they'll really listen to them for. They won't listen to them for anything else. And which is why, Anna, I'm in the same boat as you. I will volunteer, fly out to LA and sit in that room and help them work those ideas that they have work into a confines that resemble Star Trek, but still promotes the differences, because these writers here are going way too much different and not enough the same. And you have to find that really delicate balance where you can bring something new and it still feels familiar to what has been established for the last 50 years.
It's like, we want to help you. We don't want this shit to be bad. We want it to be the best it can possibly be. And it's like, that's what I think, the main point of it is like, that's why we all kind of have our channels, so that way we can say, hey, this isn't right. Let me explain, what's wrong with it and how you can fix it. And, sometimes we do get angry, and we have those videos where you can tell we're angry and, we're upset about it. But that's just because we care so much about it. I mean, jump on a plane from Canada just so we can help you with your episode, because, we want it to be good.
Exactly. Nyla Shadow makes a good point. I agree. They're probably not in the room. They're probably in the office building somewhere being ignored, but I don't think they're actually in the room.
I don't think they're there anymore. I think they got rid of them.
Yeah, I think they did too.
No, I think actually Michelle Paradise just returned to Toronto the last week or so.
Well, we also know
did.
Robert Meyer Burnett has flat out said that he knows people that are there that are basically they're being stifled.
Dismissed. They're being dismissed.
And not only that, they're keeping their mouth shut just so they can keep their jobs. That's the other problem, is they're afraid to say anything, because once they speak out, then they're going to get fired.
Well, look at how toxic the environment is there. Yeah. I mean, look what they did to Walter Mosley.
Are you guys going to go to the Star Trek convention this year?
I don't think so.
No.
I don't plan on it anyway. I mean, if we do, it'll just be more so for like a fan thing than anything, because there's really, I don't know. They really screwed us on the last one. If they wouldn't have dumped everything, at
Comic-Con,
then it wouldn't have been such a big deal. But there was really nothing there. And I mean, even as a casual fan, I was kind of disappointed. So
yeah, it's a lot of money for a lot of nothing, unless you really want to spend a lot of money to get there, spend a lot of money to stay at the hotel, and then spend a lot of money on autographs. Like I said, these autographs are not cheap. You can go to these smaller conventions and pay half the price, or you can go and spend a couple $100s and get an autograph and get it signed, or get a photograph with them rather, and get your autograph.
Yeah, there's other ways of doing a lot of the stuff we did there cheaper,
and getting them online. In
the best parts of the experience were the fans getting to meet like Mecca for the first time in person.
Oh, so I was gonna say, I want to meet you guys. So
getting to hang out. Yeah, getting to hang out.
Yeah,
with,
I think we're gonna do something. We might end up going to Star Wars Celebration, but not like the event, but like the hangout and the meetup.
I don't want to say no yet, but at this time, I don't think it's in the plans. I don't know for sure though. So. But yeah, moving on to, but yeah, we'll definitely have to work something out to where we can all meet up at some point. But yeah, we're thinking like maybe the Star Wars thing or whatever. But moving on to the next super chat, DeWall sent us another $5. He sent us a few here. Producers, writers. Oh, that was the same one. Sorry. Star Trek is still science fantasy. The same Apollo D&D is the same Apollo in Star Trek series. Next post. Apollo was an alien, also a god one. Does
He
not
was
exclude the
awesome
other.
in Star Trek Continues.
Oh yeah, that was a great little fan show. That was
It was.
fantastic.
But Star Trek, I feel like Star Wars is more science fantasy and Star Trek is more sci-fi.
Yeah, I would qualify that too. Star Wars is pure fantasy with a great science or futuristic element, and with the fairy tale. And Star Trek is classic science fiction, especially the original series, far more so than the Next Generation, in my opinion. But that doesn't deter from the Next Generation in the least. It's very still science fiction.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. All right, and I guess Rob is gone. So let's see here. Adam Wolford sent us $2. Wait, how did John fail? He didn't cause the Nova.
How did John fail?
Maybe you meant JL.
Oh.
Yeah, how did
Jean-Luc.
Jean-Luc Picard fail?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, he gave up when the Federation said,
And he
the
didn't
Federation
though.
Starfleet
That
said
was the
no.
whole thing. Wasn't that the whole point? Is that he ended up
No.
getting some people. He like tried to Schindler's List the whole thing or whatever, and get as
Well,
many
yeah,
people
because
off
that's
as he
another
could.
thing that's confusing. So, episode 3, the beginning when they have the flashback, he says, "I came up with this plan, and I told them if they don't do this, I'm going to resign," and they accept my resignation. And then Raffi gets the call that she's going to get fired, and I'm like, but there's no reason for her to get fired. And then also and that was after Mars attacked, because he even said Mars attacked and like the synths went crazy. And so I'm like, well, so then what happened? Because if he got fired or he gave in his resignation after the synths attack, so when was this thing where he decided to be a renegade and use the Starfleet ship to go and save the Romulans? It doesn't add up and it doesn't make sense. And that's why I'm like, I had to go watch it over and over again because I'm like, and it still didn't answer my question. Do you guys know?
Nope, I don't understand why she would be fired unless someone within Starfleet, who she supposedly has had evidence on corruption for the last 15 years, decided to pull rank and then kick her out through some sort of trumped up charge, which I would say that's a far more interesting story than just having Picard wander around his vineyard for 20 minutes through 3 episodes. Yeah, because I don't get it.
No, that's more of the stuff that just doesn't make sense. You know, it's one of those things you're just stopping every 5 minutes, even more. Like, wait a minute, what? Wait a minute, what? And they should just rename it Star Trek. Wait a minute, what?
Well, the tragic
That's
thing
all
is
it
that
is.
the ideas on principle could be good. It's just the execution and the ability to keep track of them is adolescent.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's the thing is because they said, like, the lady that said, fucking hubris to Jean-Luc freaking Picard, she said that he used a ship and took away Starfleet's resources after being told no. But I'm like, how would he be able to do that if he had resigned? And they're getting their timeline mixed up, and we're only on the 4th episode.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and how great would it have been to see a scene with that admiral like 15 years ago in front of Picard and a whole bunch of other admirals, and they just debate as to why they're not going to help Picard continue this evacuation. Because there you get your character, you get your exposition, you get your state of the galaxy, you get all those things that can be brought up in a single scene that's maybe no more than, say, 90 seconds to 2 minutes. And you don't have that whole outside sulking, talking to the Lieutenant Commander Raffi and the firing and all that stuff there. You don't need any of that at all. There's far more effective, cost-effective, and narrative-effective ways to do and provide context for the show. And they skip over them for, I don't even know what it is. Just like Patrick Stewart wants to act more sad and defeated. Like, it just baffles me.
But he doesn't
Constantly
even
baffles
act
me.
sad or defeated. It just seems like he's got a thorn in his side. Like, I've never gotten the feeling that he's been sad throughout this entire thing.
Well, he
Just
doesn't have to
sorry.
apologize. Yeah,
Yeah,
he's
just sorry. He has to be, white man, sorry. PHR, right? PHJR5534 brings up, don't want Trek to be too Trek. That's one of the things we keep hearing, though, is that anytime anything's too Trek, they get pissy. And what that means is they don't want it to be that old sci-fi boring Trek. They think people don't want to see that. When it's like, that's what makes Trek Trek. You can change things and make things and fudge things around, but if you turn Batman into a trans, black, half Asian little person who
That fights
drives
crime during the
around,
day.
yeah, who fights crime during the day, riding around in a scooter in a white suit, that's not Batman anymore. You can't keep doing things and changing, and Rob goes through this shit all the time with Bond. It's like there's only so many things you can change and do to Bond before it's not James Bond anymore.
This is why bringing in all these old characters was a terrible idea, and this is why the prequel's a terrible idea. It's like anytime they do something, they're trying so hard to try and trick the Star Trek fans to watching, but then doing everything in their power to apologize for being Star Trek and go out of their way to change it from Star Trek. It's like, okay, well, make up your goddamn minds. Do you want Star Trek fans, or you do want a bunch of people who hated Star Trek? Because pretty much anybody I hear who actually really likes this show either hated Picard as a character to begin with, or hated Star Trek to begin with, or I never really liked Star Trek, but, or isn't it time to change? Like, no, it wasn't. I mean, if it was time to change, why is the Orville doing so well? If fans really don't like that old storytelling, why are they bringing back all of the 80s stuff now? Because this new crap is terrible.
Pretty much. And that's Hollywood in a nutshell right there. Why bring back all this 80s stuff? Because that's when actually people liked stuff still,
Yeah, it was a fear for something new and a security blanket for what worked.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Were you going to say something, Anna? It sounded like.
Oh, I'm sorry about that.
It's okay. You guys made my point for me.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I apologize again. These super chats are way out of whack because Andre is not here.
Hey, I just realized that my avatar isn't showing up on the mainstream, so I'm going to pop out and pop back.
Yeah, that's what we were saying.
Yeah, you look like one of my nipples.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's the old.
All right, I'm going to leave and come back in.
No problem, Anna, because with the next question I think is directed to her after this next one anyway. DeWall, $5. An episode The Traveler Enterprise leaves the Crystal Sphere and enters the Phlogiston. I don't know how to say it. Phlogiston between other crystal spheres. Well, welcome back, Anna.
Thank you.
The Traveler Enterprise. In the episode The Traveler, Enterprise leaves the crystal sphere and enters the Phlogiston between other crystal spheres. Why don't I know how to say that?
I think they were talking about when they went to that atomic level in the galaxy.
Oh, yeah.
I think I remember the episode. Rob, help me out here. You're the episode guru.
Are they talking about the episode with the Traveler with Wesley?
Yeah. And the guy with the new theory of warp travel, but it's not really him. It's the Traveler doing it.
Oh, okay. Are they saying that's how they should move the Romulans? That's probably what DeWall means.
And Beverly Crusher gets put into a pocket universe later on.
Yeah, that's what he must be saying. Sorry. Okay, now we get where you're at. Yeah, that must have been when we were at in the conversation. Okay, yeah, that would make sense. Yeah, that's what we're saying. There's like 500 solutions to this problem. Like, that's the problem with this show, is that they have to create the conspiracy theory and all this other bullshit to have a show.
Well, the thing is, they're not keeping it simple.
Reference.
I'm sorry, Anna.
It says he's making a D&D reference.
Oh, okay. Dungeons and Dragons. Okay. I'm not up on the D&D references. I fell out of D&D years ago. Not my cup of tea. We need the D&D crowd here. Adam Wolford says with $5, you guys missed 2 of Super Chat from last week. I apologize for that. Also, Thrawn versus Hannibal. Who would win, Anna?
Oh, Thrawn versus Hannibal? It would depend on where they were and how much technology they had. Because if it's on, his ship, if it's on the Chimera, probably Thrawn, because Hannibal Lecter would be completely out of his element. But if they're both
put them on Cestus 3. Put them on Cestus 3, like in Kirk and the Gorn.
Okay. In that case, I would think probably Hannibal, just because Thrawn did get outsmarted because he made a miscalculation. For those of you that don't know what happens to Thrawn, something happens because he doesn't think things through. The other thing is Hannibal Lecter is a pure sociopath and, psychotic. So it's hard to predict and analyze a psychopath. So I'm tempted to say Hannibal in that sense, but if it comes down to it, Hannibal is, not as young as Thrawn, so Thrawn might have that up against him. And also the Chiss are very mysterious, so we don't know all the aspects of how they can survive in that type of atmosphere or in that type of primitive place, because when they found Thrawn, the thing about him is he was just on this planet, and he fought stormtroopers with his bare hands. He didn't have any weapons, and he was able to take down an entire deploy of stormtroopers on his own with no weapons, just sticks and stones basically. So, but he was a lot younger than as compared to being when he was a Grand Admiral. So it really depends on how old both of the men are, how much technology they both have access to, and what technology they have access to, and also the environment. I'm tempted to go with Lecter just because he is that, up in the air on how he's going to react to things. And so Thrawn can't predict Hannibal's moods and stuff and what he's going to do. But at the same time, it would depend on luck too, because what if Thrawn does make the calculations right and Hannibal Lecter makes a calculation wrong? Because we've seen both of these men be outsmarted before. So it really depends on the circumstance of the situation. That's the best I can answer that.
BA says an odd versus scenario. That's because those are two things that Anna knows a lot about. So there you go.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Robert Burmia sends us $5. The idea that one star detonating wipes out multiple solar systems is insane. Even if it did, it would take dozens of years for the blast to do that. Yeah, I think we've kind of gone round and round on that business for a while. And I think the bottom line is, if you have to sit here and keep going round and round and round and having a dozen debates about it, I think that clearly shows that the logic wasn't put into the show.
Yeah, we should have got that story instead of what we're getting now.
Yeah. That, or it should just not even be part of this story.
There's that too. Or toss it and do something way different.
Or make it simpler or something, because it's the problem is we're sitting here debating it too much. Stargate 404, $2. Deep Space Nine is best Trek. You cannot change my mind. We wouldn't dream of changing your mind. That's the whole. We'll never tell anybody how to think, what to think. We're just telling you our opinions, and I think that kind of goes back to the whole thing with, especially like Mecca was saying too, is obviously her videos are her opinions more than anything. So we would not.
And
dream
I jiggle.
Yeah, she jiggles. But we wouldn't dream of telling anybody how to feel. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people agree.
Unless they want me to. I mean, if they want me to tell them.
If you want my advice,
yes,
that's different. But I'm not going to tell somebody how to do something or what to do unless I'm their boss. So, Rob, go get me a soda.
It's like, unless you're
I'm not even his boss. I'm
a
just
parent or a boss, it's like you're not going to tell someone how to live their life.
Exactly. And even then, that's not even something a parent or a boss should even tell you.
Yeah, encourage to think, but don't manipulate the act of thinking.
Exactly.
No, don't do this to me. I'll die without you.
I think that's the best part of Mecca's disclaimer, and that kind of speaks to a lot of our channels, is we're just here to help you get a bigger overall look at things. We're not telling you what to think. Whatever you want to think from this and deduce from all the stuff that's probably a good
and
idea.
even if you do come to my channel looking for, what's the latest news on something like Star Trek or whatever, I'm still not technically a news channel, but I'll, let you know what I know. And actually, a lot of the time when we do dig up information, it's stuff that, your comicbook.coms and things won't tell you, because they are basically promotional material for these studios. They're just like an advertisement. They're not going to give you any of the behind the scenes scoops.
No.
They're not going to give you any of the drama, any of the delays, any of the information on the reshoots. And they're not going to tell you what the rumors are. And I kind of like going over rumors because it's fun to speculate. And that's what we do. We speculate.
Yeah, we talk about access media all the time, and that's the one thing I think one of our golden rules is always, if a story doesn't sit right with you, or something feels overly positive or something like that, check out and see who owns it, or look around for something that might indicate that it's a paid advertisement of some type, because sometimes they can't even hide that anymore. But it is a way of, they'll say, oh, don't report on this, and we'll give you an interview with so and so. That happens all the time. Now nobody's had the balls to try and do that to us yet, or at least not to me. I don't know about Anna, but yeah,
Nope.
yeah.
No, they don't acknowledge me in any way, shape, or form. They know who I am. They just won't
Right.
acknowledge me. And it's like the worst thing is like I've met some of these people because I mean I work in the industry, and so like we've gone to like events, and it's like they know who I am, but also it's like I'm a very, very small human being, and so it's like it's very easy to like just turn and be like, oh no, I've never seen this person. I don't know who this person is. I'm not going to acknowledge her in any way, shape, or form. But it's like, sure. We weren't in the same room together 5 years ago. Sure,
Right.
I've been there too.
It's like we don't have pictures together, but it's all right.
Right. Crazy Eyed Jedi says, I watch you guys for entertainment, not for news report. And that's probably the best way to do it. I mean, yes, Midnight's Edge does break news from time to time, but we see ourselves as more of a video magazine than we actually do like an actual news outlet. So
You do documentaries. And
that's
More
what I mean
interesting
by
than
the whole-
Entertainment Tonight, that's for sure.
Yeah, by the whole video magazine thing, that's kind of what I mean. We do like stories, we do retrospectives, we do deep dives into things, you know. Once in a while, we'll break some
like
news.
all
but-
of us are independent, so it's like you guys cover the stuff that you want to, and you don't censor it. You know, you don't care on if, oh, this is going to make the studio look bad. This is an interesting story, and this is the news that's come out.
Right. Well, we've had to jump through some hoops from time to time to get some interviews. I'm not going to say we haven't, but you know, we usually we will never put our integrity on the line. Let's put it that way. Like, you know, if it was something like we had to lie about something just to get an interview, we're not going to do that.
Yeah.
You know, but I'm not.
No, screw those people. Screw the celebrities in the studios and the writers and producers. I'm not gonna kiss their butts. I'm not gonna give them a bunch of spin, and I'm not gonna say something that I know is 100% BS without calling it 100% BS.
Why am I supposed to change to yellow? I don't understand.
What does this mean? Red mecha, blue script doctor, that Star Wars girl, right? White of gray, and Tom and Robert are green. What is that supposed to mean?
Oh, because
Our
we're all the
colors of
same
our
colors.
avatars, yeah.
Oh, gotcha.
Oh.
Oh, I see it now. Okay. I was like, what? What am I supposed to do? What did I miss? You know, it's like, okay, all right.
Oh, wait,
let's
are they
get-
trying to do like the Olympic rings with our avatars?
Maybe
Because that'd be clever.
that or the Ninja Turtles or the Power Rangers or something. I don't know. But let's move on with these super chats because we've gone a lot farther than we want to, and I know Captain Robert April wanted to come in and talk about the whole supernova business, but I don't know if we're gonna have time for that. We all kind of run around it so much, and I apologize, but we do got to get.
I've
to
already
super
gone
chats.
3 hours. Too.
Yeah, that's the thing is I want to. Yeah, we've got to get rolling here. Let's see here. Where did we leave off? Matt G sent us $2. So anyone have any good Valentine's Day plans? You're looking at them.
I'm just
I
waiting
know.
for my girlfriend to be ready so I can go pick her up because she's been texting
Right.
me like, oh, still picking up my shoes. I'm like, okay.
I
We're
got
going to my
little-
place. I don't know why you care, but okay.
I'm gonna
That
have
was
like
me yesterday because
10
I
minutes.
celebrated Valentine's Day yesterday. So, yeah.
So you're not gonna do anything special tonight then?
I'm gonna work.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I'm doing. Like I'm gonna get 10 minutes in between things here, and then yeah.
Yeah, I'm just gonna do my big stream tomorrow because my birthday's Sunday and then Valentine's Day is today, so I'm just gonna do the big stream tomorrow or something.
Oh, happy early.
Well, happy birthday.
Thank you.
Yes. Happy birthday.
I was trying to do something, but then I never end up doing anything for it. So
All right, let's move on here. RFAR New Zealand 899. I can't believe Annie Checker is defending the show. It's dumb, offensive, and pandering of the lowest order. It could have been good in the right hands. Now, of course, Annie Checker's not here, so I don't want to dwell on this too much because he can't defend himself. We do appreciate the super chat, but for the most part, the panel that's here agrees with you. So you have that. You know, I mean, there's thing. I reiterate, even going back to what Annie Trekker said in the challenge he put on the table about us disliking this before we went into it. I find that very unfair because, again, I reiterate, I've been trying and dying to find things.
well,
about the
I didn't
show
go
to
in
love.
blind. That's the thing. It's like
Right,
there
yeah.
was no way to go in blind. I've had people give me death threat. I've had Jeffrey Hunter, Chris Hunter's son, or no, I've had Jeffrey Hunter's son, Chris Hunter, say he wants to knock out my fans' teeth and telling people to attack my channel. Now, if you don't know who that is, well, Jeffrey Hunter was the original actor who played Captain Pike. So no, I'm not going into Star Trek blind. I'm going in with however many years of discovery that we've been doing this and all of the antagonistic crap that I've been dealing with those people. And I'm going in with knowing everything that's going to happen in this based on the script leaks, the plot stuff, like the leaks that were actually accurate, based on what Kurtzman has said, based on what these people have said. So there's no way to not have an opinion one way or another. I mean, it's impossible, especially if you know pretty much everything is going to happen for the first 2 episodes and you know exactly the type of crap before. I mean, it would be irresponsible to not have an opinion of it before you go in, because that would mean that would be give me something to go in and have an opinion on that I have no prior knowledge of. Then I wouldn't make up my mind beforehand. But no, I made up my mind that
I wanted to like it. And same thing with like things like Joker. When I was wrong, I admitted it afterwards. So
I wanted to hate Knives Out
satisfying,
and Sonic, and I didn't. So it's for this whole, and I think his argument is just it misses the mark, because it's not an argument of whether you made up your mind to hate it or not beforehand. It's like, did I have enough reason to hate this beforehand? Yeah, I did. Yeah, I really, really did. I had enough reason to hate this beforehand. They didn't give me anything to love. They didn't give me anything to latch onto. And I'm sorry, just because you show 7 of fucking 9 in Data doesn't mean everything's okay. And the past year where you're yelling at us saying we're all racists because Michael Burnham's a shit character, despite the fact that you made the only black woman on Picard a crackhead, and living in a trailer, but we're racists? Come on, are you fucking kidding me? No, it's just an irresponsible take, I think, and it's not even an argument that anybody should really be making. So of course we had to go in and make some sort of assessment before.
Well, I feel like the casting directors are trying to like make a cry for help, if anything, because they're making it like, all the men that everyone has been saying, white man bad, but they're making all the men the most sympathetic characters, and all the typical, casting a woman of color as the crackhead. I'm like, what are they doing?
No, they didn't think it's
crazy anyways.
they genuinely believe that they're being representative by saying, see, we have diversity because we have a woman of color, we have this, we have this. Yeah, and that's the issue that I have with this modern stuff, is that they're not smart enough to understand the political message that they're trying to sell. And that's the problem here.
All right, let's move on to the next super chat. Tim Riggs sends us $19.99. I don't really have anything to add to the discussion. Just want to support the channel and the streams. Love your guys' work and discussions. Well, thank you so much, Tim Riggs. And obviously, we're not going to have an After Dark tonight. We've gone way over time here, so I apologize for that. But we'll try and do something this weekend around everybody else's business. Who knows? We'll see what we can figure out. Arfar, New Zealand, $8.99. I can't believe... Oh, I did that one twice. Sorry. DCB Titan sent us Canadian $2. The Orville are the other guys. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So we're at that point in the conversation in the super chats, if anybody's wondering. When I brought up the Orville, of course. We all love the Orville here. And it just kept getting better. Oh, you haven't seen it yet? You'd probably enjoy it, I think. Maybe.
My sister was a really big fan of Seth MacFarlane, so I'm like, that's going to be years before I can watch anything he's done.
Yeah, sorry to hear that. Yeah, that's tough. So, well, hopefully someday down the road you can enjoy it. The Junk Man himself sends us $2. I wanted to love Picard. Anyway, here $2 to share. Thank you so much, Junkman. And yeah, I don't think anybody wanted to go in hating Picard. And I'm still one of those who doesn't believe in this, if you go in with spoilers or knowing what the story's going to be, it ruins the experience. I find that complete bullshit. I grew up my entire life living in an area where I did not get to see any movie until it was 4 or 5 months old or on video. So I'd already read the novel or the...
I told Rob exactly what was going to happen in Sonic after 5 minutes. And I still love the crap out of it. It's like, sorry,
it's all about execution. It's all about execution.
Yeah, that argument's shit. Even if I know everything's going to happen, I can still enjoy it. How entertaining is it? Oh, it's not. It's the most boring piece of crap.
Go watch a trailer from the 70s or 80s. Most of them give away the entire movie right in the trailer.
Yeah. I bet you Titanic made a lot of money. Nobody was surprised by what happened in Titanic.
Spoiler, the ship sinks.
What? Why did you tell me this? God damn it. I'm not watching it now. No, crazy is keep going back to the Titanic and thinking it's not going to sink at least once. There you go. Thank you so much again for that, Junk Man. Mexican Iron Man, our good friend, sends us $9.99. Go ahead, Rob. You're
He's
muted.
probably off playing Grand Theft Auto. He's been muted for like an hour.
Hold on.
I'm tattling on him.
We almost have to do that just because. I think it's absolutely devastating to watch what is happening happening slowly to my beloved Star Trek sci. Yeah, we're all getting to that point, I think. And we're getting close to the end of the super chats here. So again, I want to thank everybody for joining us once again and having happy Valentine's Day hanging around with us. Now that Junkman's off to Twitter to troll some Phantom Menace people. You know what? I've watched your videos, that Junkman. I know for some reason there's some beef between you and the Phantom Menace, but I don't usually try to get into all the drama stuff. So, and I know Andre avoids it at all costs. So I enjoy some of your work, and I've seen some of your videos before, and I think you're all right. So there you go. So no hard feelings from me here at all on that point. Adam Wolford sent us another $2. Anna is the Gray Jedi.
Oh, thank you.
She's not at least the Gray Order, so we won't need to get into all that.
Is that anything like the Grey Council? Is it a ripoff of the Grey Council?
I don't even know what that stuff is. All of a sudden,
I know.
everyone's like talking about it, and I got spammed in one of the comment sections because, you know, if somebody copies and pastes a comment too many times, it gets reported as spam. And it was something about like the Grey Order or whatever it was, and then it just died. It's like, I don't even know what this is.
I don't either. I don't know.
But I think he's referring to a Grey Jedi.
Yeah, I think she was just saying it. He was just saying it because of your picture, that's all. Nothing implied otherwise. I was just making a stupid joke. And Stargate 404 sent us $5. I got into Star Trek by catching Star Trek Enterprise reruns on Sci-Fi Channel. It felt grounded in reality rather than high sci-fi space fantasy. Yeah, I remember watching Enterprise.
I watched it.
I liked it.
Once you get past like the Zindi stuff, then it got good again. Probably by season 4, I really have a hard time, and I will probably never rewatch. I just skip over the last couple of times I watched Enterprise, the whole Zindi 2 seasons of that crap, and it's like once they get to like the space Nazi plot or whatever, then I'm like, oh god. Well, they had aliens go back to World War II was what it was. So once I go to that, I'm like, okay, that's about when I can like skip over those 2 and then go back to, you know, Star Trek. But yeah, I skip a whole 2 seasons of that stuff. Which sucks because I really like some of the characters.
I was just pissed with what they did to Trip. I was like, no.
Yeah, I liked Trip.
Yeah, it was so unnecessary. It was so unnecessary.
I liked Archer. I liked.
I really love Dr. Phlox. He's probably the best.
Oh, I love Phlox.
Oh god, and he's cool in real life too.
All right.
We didn't get to talk to him much, but we get Rob and I talked to him on the way in or out one day.
Just in passing.
Yeah.
And I think there was a super chat that we missed here somewhere. Do you have it, Bill?
Yeah, Clinging Mars for $2. Start the show earlier and end pilot with Mars Boom.
Why did I miss that one? Hopefully that's the only one I did miss.
Yeah, they should have kind of how in Star Trek 2009, how the first, 20-30 minutes of it is everything that happens with the Romulans coming through the black hole and Kirk's being born and all that. They could have just done the first, half of the first episode be the flashback, and we see everything that happens, Picard fighting for this, and it can be very, very fast paced, like one scene that's maybe 1 to 2 minutes long, Picard getting denied, the next scene's him doing it anyway, and then simultaneously the Mars thing happens, and then the fallout of it. My timing might be a little bit off, but you could do that, and then it just be 14 years later. So we kind of get a scope of what happened, as compared to having it be the flashback scene in each episode where it's inconsistent. Does that make sense? Yay?
Yeah.
No, that's
totally.
It's true. I mean, personally, as a writer myself, I hate having to do time jumps, especially over big ones, because you're essentially restarting the story. But if this is what the writers of Star Trek Picard wanted to get across, Anna, what you structured out works pretty well and effective.
Thanks.
All right. Well, I don't think we missed any more super chats unless anybody knows any better. I said something in the chat, and I don't think anybody's said that I had. We did have this old question. Would you like to see a Star Trek, Star Wars crossover? I don't think the worlds would collide too well. One's in a galaxy far, far away a long time ago, and the other one's our future.
Only if it's Baby Yoda. And what was cute on Star Trek?
Baby Yoda on a purple planet. And they're fighting over the food. Oh, and he holds one in a little hand, like that cup, and it's a little Baby Yoda with little baby tribbles.
I want to see Baby Yoda eating a bunch of tribbles.
No, we don't eat tribbles.
He cuddles with them, and they're best
cuddle
friends.
them. He would have them as a pet. He would put it on his shoulder.
They're best friends. Don't even know killing Baby Yoda.
Sketch
if he accidentally feeds one, he's going to have to start fixing that.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Yeah, baby.
You don't want to feed Baby Yoda after midnight either. So, but all right, folks. I hope everybody's having a happy Valentine's Day, just the same whether you're with that special someone or not. I'm of course with that special someone because I'm with all of you out there listening and with all my friends here on the chat and the panel here. So I want to thank them once again for taking the time out of this day to join me to talk Picard for this 3+ hour. Sheesh, I don't know what you'd call it anymore. This show has just gone completely off the rails. When you're sitting here talking about it for over 2+ hours, that's something wrong. Rob, why don't you help everybody out here, introduce them, and take us out?
All right. Let's start. Let's go. Okay, ladies first. Anna, tell everybody where they can find you.
You can find me on my channel, That's Star Wars Girl, and then on Twitter, That's Star Wars Girl, and on Instagram, That's Star Wars Girl, and on Facebook. They're all the same name.
There you go.
Mecca, tell them we can find you.
Well, here on YouTube, Mecha Random 42. It's at Random Monkey. You can see it under my picture here. That's my Twitter. I just should probably have thought that out a little better, but I was still using my old screen name way back when. So the Mecha Random is just kind of it was a nickname anyway that stuck. So yeah, I hear Midnight's Edge After Dark. I'm always there. High Council. Where else? Where else am I? Creepy Little Book. If you like paranormal,
yes, hanging out
and
with Pete and all those guys. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the weird, heady, high strangeness show. So, yeah.
Talk about the aliens and
aliens and Bigfoots and weird stuff. Yeah.
Big Goonie Goo Goo.
That ain't no Puerto Rican.
Bigfoot. Script Doctor, tell everybody to find you.
You can find me here on YouTube at the Script Doctor. In the next 48 hours, my Star Trek Episode 3 analysis and review will drop. You can also find me on Twitter at ScriptDoctorPhD, where I will be posting with whatever live stream I end up showing up on. I also do a show every Thursdays on Supreme Heretics channel about Battlestar Galactica from Ronald D. Moore. So if you ever want a respite from terrible sci-fi, come join us over there where we talk about the old show, do some review analysis, and have a lot of fun. Plus Midnight Edge After Dark a lot.
Pretty much like, yeah, now like our we finally have a fourth wheel on the car, it seems like sometimes with you around. So I think we kind of agreed on that. So definitely check out Script Doctor's channel and check him out here with us on Midnight's Edge and Midnight's Edge After Dark. So Rob, yeah, I think we've had some fun. Have you?
Yes.
And do check out Matt Kadish and Annie Trekker as well.
That's right. Annie Trekker. Check out their respective YouTube channels. Everybody, thank you very much for joining us. As always, we will catch you next time.
Happy Valentine's Day with dune buggies and pew-pews.
Exactly.
And boobs.
Well, it's...
Ben Shakira.